I went through what is P Company, and I would honestly say it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Far harder than SAS selection. If you think back in history, when the paras go in, they go in, and it's non-stop. Pow, pow, pow at Normandy. Don't stop. You don't get the night off. So the selection was designed for that. Pow, 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 pow. And they wanted to run you into the ground as fast as they can. They want you by midday, on the hands and knees. You want to give up, soldier? No, I'm going to keep going and keep going. It was a nightmare, but I looked past it. If you fail this one, you know you're going to go back again.
What was it like when you were there?
Stupid.
Was it pretty violent?
One of the hardest things I did
I have 4 dogs, and they've eaten all types of different food, and we recently found Team Dog, I believe this spring, so we've been on it for a year. Seeger was on it first, and Tiller was on it, and then we put the Goldens on it, and I mean, all the dogs eat less food, the dogs' coats are way better. Everything about Team Dog is, I'm very impressed. My dog trainer, Justin Allen, he uses it on all 60 dogs that are there for training. He's tried every single food in the game too, and they just stay super healthy on this Team Dog.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He was a Tier 1 operator in the UK Special Air Service, or SAS, as most people know of it. He was part of Operation Nimrod, which was the 6-day siege on the Iranian Embassy, where 6 armed revolutionaries took 26 people hostage. Then he spent 34 years in the weapons and training industry as the training director for Heckler Koch, or HK, founder of Singleton International, training thousands of law enforcement officers across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Phil Singleton.
Thank you.
How are we doing?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this, actually.
Likewise. I enjoy all interviews, but especially being able to talk to, UK...
Fellow operator.
Yeah, especially from across the pond, though, because the amount of respect that all U.S. service members have for all of our British counterparts is immense, and you don't get to hear from them very often. So it's
not too many of us over here.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you on the show.
As far as I know, unless things have changed, I believe I was the only operator on that team that's now living working here in the United States.
Wow.
To my knowledge.
Yeah.
Mind you, we're all old now.
Yeah.
I was a youngster then, 26, 27.
Yeah.
I'm now pushing 73, so my generation is probably, they're all dead, they're all in homes, all like me, retired old farts out somewhere.
Yeah. But you sure still seem sharp and capable, so, but again, I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
My pleasure indeed.
What's the last full book that you've read?
I'm reading, my favorite author is Bernard Cornwell, and he writes sort of historical novels based on historical fact. And there's a TV program, actually, The Last Kingdom, going back to the time of the Vikings.
Yeah.
There with it all, and Utrecht and all that. I enjoyed them books because he did his homework well. I haven't read too much. I'm reading one of his now, a real interesting novel. I got to do something on the plane, then sit there. And I don't carry a cell phone, and I don't have an iPod or whatever it is. So the less I can do, anything technologically is perfect for me.
Yeah.
But I'd say the last one I read through is a friend of mine who was a cop in the LA area sent me a book on D-Day. Because what we actually did back in 06, the pair of us, we said no wives, no women, just the two of us, and we went over there to Normandy, as 2 guys, and we could stand on the beach of Vierville and look up and know what's going on and imagine and thinking, God, I'm here now, not then,
right, and
stuff like that. So he sent me a book, and what is interesting is it wasn't one of them historical books that just says, the Third Corps did this or it goes down to interviewing participants and getting their version of it. So you tend to get more of what the reality is on the ground. And as I said, as you very well know, I'm interested more on what's going on the ground, the thoughts, the feelings, the reactions.
Right.
So that's the last one I read, and I finished it about a month ago.
Well, it sounds fascinating.
Yes, I like them sort of books. There used to be a series of World War I books, and it was a lady, and her husband was in the BBC, and she was over there in Belgium, and she just happened to be near the Ypres battlefield, and she was there, and this is going back years. Lynn MacDonald was her name, and she got talking to a couple of the old boys, and he said, well, the trench was here, and this and that, and what she didn't do is she didn't write a book. She interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and they all basically chronologically took her through the whole battles and everything. And as I said, as a former operator, I found that far more interesting than some civilian historian, putting it in a very generic mode.
That's amazing. I'll have to check it
Yeah, I
out.
love them sort of books, yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Oh, hell, here we go.
Yeah. Who's that by?
Me.
Me. All right. Or you. That's awesome. What was your favorite thing to do growing up?
I was a Boy Scout, but I wasn't in one of them touchy-feely little Boy Scouts, help the old lady. The guys in charge, they love to go camping, and I'm from South Wales, so there's plenty of hills and mountains, so at least twice a month I'd be up in the hills there, camping, doing everything. We go out sometimes and say, look, let's not take a tent, let's make bivouacs and spend the night there, especially in South Wales, it's always raining.
Yeah.
So it was enjoyable, it was tough, and the break. And then my father was a steel worker and a big company, and they had something that's quite rare in Britain. They had a 2-2 club, 25-yard range. So I'm shooting. I'm learning to shoot, and I enjoyed it. I love having a pack on my back over the hill, so I became a soldier, really.
Yeah.
What else was I going to do?
I didn't realize that they had Boy Scouts in the UK.
It was designed by a Brit.
Yeah, wow.
General Baden-Powell in, what was it, the Boer War, 1900.
Is that, or at least at that time, was it a popular thing for young boys?
Yes, it was.
A lot of them did.
There was no youth clubs or anything like that. Today, where you got the mass media and whatever, you could get into clubs. There was nothing then. So really, all you had was the Boy Scouts, or what they called the Boys Brigade.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
You had little troops all over the place, so all your friends and neighbors, all guys the same age, you all belonged to that little troop. A lot of fun, completely different.
Yeah, that's awesome. So being born in 53 in Wales, I would love for you to kind of characterize your childhood and walk us through what it was like growing up there at that time, especially so close to the end of World War II.
I grew up in a very comfortable household. My father had a good job. He was a steel worker, and he worked his way up from stoker to technical manager. And my mother had one of her elder brothers living there, and he was a docker. And there's a sort of a funny introduction between all that to me being in the army and everything like that. So I grew up comfortable. I went to a backstreet school. No big high schools, nothing. In America, you call them grades. In Britain, we call them forms. There was one form of each age group. So I'm in a class of 30 and 40, and you had the brightest and you had the dumbest. So I was usually in the top 5 or 6 with it also. It was very, very backstreet. And it was quite normal then. Growing up at 50s, 60s, started school. And the thing about then is, I tell people, I said, I enlisted in the army at 15. And they go, 15? I said, in 69, when I finished school, I said, the school leaving age was 14.
Wow.
Britain, as you mentioned there, in a post-Second World War, had 1,000 things to worry about. Total reconstruction. Let's leave the education system alone. So I went through the same education system that my parents did. So I got boys at 14, leaving school. At 15, I enlist. And my mother hated it. My mother absolutely hated it. She was absolutely dead against it. And like we're saying, I loved, in the army, my favorite terrain was jungle. I love being in the jungle because I'm back being a backwoodsman again. I'm back in the woods. I'm back with my knife and doing stuff and this and that. And I loved it. But with my uncle and my father being blue collar, and we're going back there 50s and 60s. So I got my mother washing for 2 men with dirty jobs. And this is long before super duper washing machines or anything. But a lot of it was by hand. So she had this thing that her son was going to go to work with a nice crisp white shirt on and nice collar and tie. And every morning, bye, mummy, see you later. He goes, no, Phil's going to join the army. What? And it gets even worse. Officially, not until 16, I had to have my parents sign for me. My father signed, and my mother was against it. And my father told me after I went in there a little bit later on, he says, when we saw you off at the station, he said, I spent 3 to 4 months in the spare room. Your mother wouldn't talk to him or nothing. He said, the advantage of that was I go drinking every night with my friends. So there was an offshoot of it all. But the one thing I remember is, and where, oh hell, here we go, comes in. I'm going to join the army. So, of course, I'm at the Cardiff Queen Street station waiting for the London Express to take us east. And my mother is making a scene. You ever seen people, especially women, when they can't breathe and they go, that was my mother, loudly. My father's just looking at me. I'm looking at my father. I'm going to get this damn train here now. She can't breathe. And top of her voice. And of course, everybody's looking. This is the capital of Wales, to the train to London. Finally, the train came in. I made the mistake of getting in the on the train there, on the passengers, and I sat right next to the window on the platform side. So here's the big cab and old people, and it was like a commuter train. It was open. And now my mother's up against the window. All her face is dirty, where she's getting all the grime from the train and everything. And I'm just like, oh, God.
BUBS Naturals has been supporting this show for a very long time. And I've been a fan of their collagen for years. I use it every single day. But I have to tell you, I'm genuinely fired up about what they just launched. It's their creatine monohydrate. Now look, creatine isn't anything new. Most of you know what it does. It's more energy, faster recovery, lean muscle, better focus under stress and fatigue. It's one of the most researched supplements on the planet, recognized by the International Society of Sports Nutrition. The problem is most creatine on the market is garbage. A recent study found roughly 50% of creatine products exceeded impurity limits, and most of it's manufactured in China with zero accountability. BUBS sources exclusively from Creapure. It's made in Germany under very strict quality controls. It's the purest creatine monohydrate available. There's no fillers, there's no hype. 100% NSF for Sport certified. You know exactly what you're putting in your body. And here's what makes BUBS different from any other supplement company out there. The brand is a tribute to former Navy SEAL Glenn "Bub" Doherty, who laid down his life serving Americans in Benghazi. Glenn stood for self-improvement and always helping others. That's the DNA of this entire brand. BUBS donates 10% of all profits to charity in his honor. That's a company absolutely worth supporting. Live better longer with BUBS Naturals. For a limited time, get 20% off your entire order with code MICDROP, all caps, all one word, at bubsnaturals.com. That's BUBS Naturals.com. Code MICDROP for 20% off.
took off. Didn't go all the way to London. I was based south of Reading, which is about half an hour west of London. Went down there, got on the bus, and I remember standing outside the gate of the camp. Army Apprentices College, Aberfield, and I could see boys inside. And I remember looking at the sign and saying, oh, hell, here we go. This is the start of the rest of my life. And there's nothing on earth that's going to pull me back. And I walked through them gates happy. And that was April 69, and here I am now.
Wow.
You know,
that's an incredible path. Were you an only child growing up?
Yes, yes.
Was World War II, or the aftermath, I mean, was there scarring, you know, from that where you grew up, and was it something people talked about?
If there was, I was too young to notice because I was sort of in my own world. My family, my mother had 3 elder brothers. Ken was in the signals, and he went up through Europe after D-Day. Arthur was in a Cheshire Regiment, a machine gun battalion, and he landed with the Americans in his division in North Africa, in Morocco, Algeria, then went in and then went all the way up through Italy. Then the next brother up, he was in the Navy, and he was on a shallow draft Corvette. And they would go up and down all the rivers in Africa looking for U-boats that may have just docked up there for a while. On my father's side, my grandfather enlisted in the Welsh Regiment in 1920-21. He was a miner from the Midlands. And in them days, you didn't know 2 miles away from your own place. So all of a sudden, he and his buddy comes out of the mine. He's a miner. And he said, what the hell are we going to do? We're mines. We're going nowhere. And they saw a big sign saying British Army. And he said, why not? What the hell are we going to do? So they go in there and they say, well, what are we going to do? Well, I tell you what, let's be one of them guys that rides motorcycles delivering messages, you know, a signals dispatch rider. Well, of course, militaries and all over the world has this sense of humor. His buddy comes out in the Grenadier Guards and he's posted to the Welsh Regiment in Cardiff, Wales, and he said, where the hell is that? And he got on the train for the first time, goes down to Wales, and that started my father's line off again. And all his side there, they were all in World War II. I had an uncle, never met him. He was a commando. Apparently, part of the family there, I had 2 uncles killed at Arnhem. They were I don't think they were parachuted. I think they were in air landing, glider-borne, and I know they both died at Arnhem. My father finally got in, I think, late 1944-45, and he had some stories. And what he did before that was he worked in the air raids, and he said the saddest day of his life was just after D-Day. You know, he's 17, and he worked at the local hospital, bringing all the wounded back. And he said, I got boys on a stretcher. It could have been classmates of mine.
Wow.
And he said that was the biggest trauma. So he enlists, and he ends up in the Welsh Regiment. And it didn't need anybody by then, and they actually transferred his whole division to the Air Force. So then my father was in the Air Force. So I grew up with veterans. You know, my grandfather in the Welsh Regiment, he left in, I think, 37. And then what they did then was, in the very, very early days, they put him in the artillery, and they made him an artillery sergeant, anti-aircraft. And what they would do is they go around where the town is, they find a plot of land, and they put an anti-aircraft gun there. Then they find another one. So what it is, when the sirens went off, they'd all come running out of their house, and they'd man the guns. And then they put his guns on the merchant ships, and it was called DEMS. I don't know what it stood for. But what it was taking supplies to Russia over the top of Norway into Murmansk, and it was the Murmansk ferry. So then he did that, and he became a sergeant major in the artillery. My father then was Air Force. I got 3 cousins on my mother's side who all served. My grandfather on my mother's side was a World War I vet, and I believe he was horse artillery. I was too young to ask. I mean, the questions I have now didn't come to my mind then.
Right.
But I believe, talking to my father, getting sketched of what he got gassed in World War One, and he was around long enough to father 4 kids, and he must have died of massive cancer and whatever. So Phil's going to join the army. Well, of course. What else does a singleton do? Yeah. They don't wear crisp ties and shirts and go off to the little office or anything like that. Yeah. They do it, and it's the best thing I ever did. Oh, hell. Here we go. Yeah. With no looking back, Mike. Yeah. No looking back whatsoever.
It's fascinating. I mean, to me, I find that era or period of time so remarkably fascinating. I also love history, and especially now the amount of kind of documentaries and specials they have with remastered footage from World War II, and hearing the intricacies of the campaign in Europe are just really, really interesting. I am curious, like at that time growing up, was enlisting something that was looked down upon, or was it?
No, quite the contrary.
Yeah, because now it's kind of different, right?
I mean, look at the differences in America. I mean, all the rich families and all this, they don't join the army. You've got the future king of Britain. Well, you got the king now, Charles III. He served in the military, and his son's going to be a future king. They all serve in the military. Is actually regarded as a very honorable thing to do. Yeah. You gained a degree of respect, where I know in America it tends to be those of wealth or position. No, we don't do things like that. We let the Untermensch go and do it all. Those lucky enough to go to college, they'll become officers and doing what, and everybody else, let them go and do the fighting. In Britain, quite the contrary.
Yeah. I mean, that's great to hear. It is kind of a weird mix here in America. I mean, I remember some of my teammates were kind of more in that spectrum of higher or upper class, but yeah, most are it's an opportunity for them, and they take advantage of it. During your childhood, was there a specific like favorite traditional meal that you had growing up?
Well, my mother was a housewife. You're talking of what's it over here? The Leave It to Beaver days, where you all had your roles. The man went off to work, and he came home about 4:30, and he had his cup of tea. Then he had his meal, read the newspaper. Well, regardless of what was happening then, the wife, well, she becomes a housewife. Your role in life in this post-Second World War is, and when there was no opportunities for women, it was nothing then. That's really going back to the old days. So she became a housewife. So she cooked every meal. I enlisted in the army as a vehicle mechanic into the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers as a vehicle mechanic. I grew up where there were no cars. Neither of my parents ever drove a vehicle, knew how to drive. So my mother used to walk to the shops every day to collect the meals. So it was a little bit of the old Monday was this, Tuesday was that. But what I really remember is, and I do it myself and I miss, is that good roast dinner. Nice piece of beef or even lamb with the roast potatoes, the Yorkshire puddings, the thick brown gravy. That's what I miss. Yeah. And if my wife is first generation American from Mexican parents, and she would say, "You want a meal?" He does it. Don't ask me. She couldn't boil an egg without burning the water, and she couldn't care less. Yeah. So that was always my favorite, to have. There wasn't too many. You're talking about it sort of post-Second World War, late 50s, early 60s. It was still not an international community. As I mentioned with my grandfather, you grew up and you lived in the same town. You may have got married wherever. You lived just down the road from your parents. Nobody was transient. Oh, I'm going to get a job, in this other city. And they were like, what? You're going to leave it? And there wasn't a lot of, non-white Brits, I suppose you could say. I mean, went to school, and my whole school, there were 3 black kids, all in my class. Great friends of mine, Laban and Paul. And Chinese restaurants were rare. Indian restaurants, maybe. Mexican, non-existent.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an international community. It was sort of the end of the old, the regime. And then, of course, with transport, the road system opened up, so people became far more transient. And then, of course, international communities started moving in and this and that. So it was the end of that. So everything was, I suppose, plain, boring British.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the simplicity behind it, though, is I think interesting and desirable, though. I mean,
and it's not a complex thing to do. You got to go back in them days, and what was a cooker?
Yeah.
You were lucky if you had something electric that had actually 4 hot plates. I mean, that was a luxury. Gas was something that was around, but not too many people did. And later on, of course, with the North Sea oil, you got North Sea gas, and that was something. But everything was really electrical cooking, so it could not be complicated in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could walk us through kind of from the day you joined until you made it to the selection process for SAS, what did that look like?
It was something I always wanted to do.
So you knew about it even when you joined?
Oh, I knew all about it because, as I mentioned earlier on, I grew up in a World War II veteran society. And, they could talk and they could watch something on TV, a military program, a war program, and they could sort of narrate it for me. Oh, this is what's happening, that's who, this is there. Of course, the movie industry got to bend things to make it interesting because, as you know very well, reality is quite boring.
Yeah.
It has to be mixed in some way. And it's just something I wanted to do. I just loved that life. As I said, I loved the jungle. I was happy being in the deserts, tromping over places. Now, I can't even get up 2 flights of stairs, but at least I did that. So I joined the Army at 15 as a vehicle mechanic in the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers, and I was responsible for repairing Land Rover trucks and Land Rover vehicles and Bedford trucks, going back to the good old days of plugs and points. I did that, and I'm in a unit where we're all boys, 15, 16, 17. And I would say it's probably the most carefree time in my life. I wasn't expected to do anything. I wasn't expected to achieve really anything other than learn your job, learn how to be a soldier. You're young and you're stupid, and you realize that because 30 of you can all match, the same pace, putting your foot down at the same time or all turn was wonderful. As we grew older, it was the last thing we wanted to do, like Monty Python, marching up and down the square, I'm not good enough for you, eh? And then it was fantastic. And I learned the trade, I enjoyed it all, and then I volunteered. I wanted to serve in what was then the 16th Parachute Brigade, which was sort of the end of the old World War II. It had gone from divisions down to a brigade where they kept the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion with all its support. And I volunteered for that. And at 17 and a half, I arrive at the para barracks. I'm straight from basic training, and I'm looking at the para barracks. And I got guys in red berets there. Wow. So got into my unit, and it's called the 1st Parachute Logistics Regiment. It was a support regiment. It had a REME unit in it. You had a transport squadron, and you had sort of an ordnance base. And they called it Parachute Logistics Regiment. The Marines had the same thing. They had the Marine Logistic Regiment. And then I went through what is P Company. And I would honestly say it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Far harder than SAS selection, but not to say that SAS was easy. It's a different type of selection, but a different type of person. When if you think back in history, when the paras go in, they go in, and it's non-stop. Pow, pow, pow at Normandy. Don't stop. You don't get a night off. You don't get, go and get some sleep for 5 or 6 hours. No way. You're going to get some sleep. So the selection was designed for that. pow, 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 pow. And they wanted to run you into the ground as fast as they can. They want you by midday, on hands and knees. You want to give up, soldier? No, I'm going to keep going and keep going. And it was a nightmare. I hated every moment of it, but I looked past it. And I looked at it saying, you just got to do this. You've got to do this. Because if you fail this one, you're going to go back again. Let's get this done. Let's look at what's next. And one of the hardest things I did...
Here's the thing. It's almost impossible to show up for your family, your work, your country when you're running on no sleep. That was me. Tossing and turning, ceiling staring, dragging through the next day on caffeine just to survive it. That's no way to operate. Dream changed that. I sleep through the night now. I wake up clear-headed and actually present for the people who need me. No groggy haze, no next day fog. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. The chocolate peanut butter flavor that they sent me tastes like hot cocoa before bed. I genuinely look forward to it, and Beam has improved over 28 million nights of sleep across this country. Spring is here, and summer's right around the corner. This is the season to show up strong, do it with something made by Americans, for Americans, and you're going to do it with Dream. Go to shopbeam.com/micdrop and use the code MicDrop, all caps, all one word, to get my exclusive offer for up to 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. So with my discount code MicDrop, you can get their best-selling Dream Powder for just $39. If you've been meaning to fix your sleep, this is the time. Get Dream, their best-selling sleep powder, for up to 40% off.
The final part of what they call P Company was we go down to the place in South Wales that I knew very well. Let's go camping. They're called the Brecon Beacons, which is where SAS selection went as well. And the last thing you do is, the last day, is called the stretcher race. And you have about a stretcher with about 200 pounds on it. And you got your pack and you got your rifle and you got about teams of like 16. And what you do is at the run, and you're running. And you don't stop to change over. You just do it at the run. And then you got down to a road, and it was like about 2 miles running with the stretcher. And you got it on the shoulder. And I found it extremely agonizing. I hated every second. On the changeover, you put your arm out, and they put 2 guns on it. Your gun and the gun, the SLR, the rifle from the guys taking your place. And you just went to the back, regrouped. And you kept doing that at the run. And I personally... I was 160 pounds of airborne fury type of deal. The beware the world, this is it. And I was so thin, so very light. The guys used to joke at me. They said, if you were naked with your red beret on, you look like a matchstick. But I found that the hardest thing I've ever done. And then they send you to a Royal Air Force camp to do the parachuting. And you went from one world to the other. And I know same in the United States military, the Marines, the Army, your background with the Navy and stuff. And then you go to an Air Force base and it's like, are you actually in the military or are you civilians? Because you're treated a mamby-pamby like civilians. Yeah. And it was just we're seeing food. What the hell is all this? We didn't see this. We're mamby-pambied, just doing jump school. I came back and an opening came up in one of the para battalions, 3rd Battalion, Parachute Regiment. I said, definitely, absolutely. So I then went to I was small REME section. And we just kept all the vehicles of the para battalion. But, we were all trained as paratroopers. I'd done the P Company. We were expected to do everything, do the patrolling, our weaponry up. But we all had the second job of also repairing the vehicles. And it was superb to be with one of the finest battalions in the British Army and to learn from them. They treated me very well as a young little 18-year-old, realizing, of course, there was a lot of recruits about the same age. And I'd gone through P Company. I had my para wings up. So that was the acceptance. If I didn't have that up there, okay. What is it? They used to call us penguins, the birds that don't fly. So when you got your para wings up, you were in that society. And of course, we did all the stupid stuff, like a tour of Northern Ireland, all over the place. 6 month stupid tour to Cyprus, UN tour. We wore blue berets. It was the worst tour ever, but it was the best drinking session because that's all we could do.
Yeah.
Just go all before the Turks hit. This was 72. I mean, you got some great, beautiful towns, Famagusta, Kyrenia. We're just outside Limassol. And all you could do, we're soldiers. What else are we going to do? A lot of other little things. The great thing was we were based out of Great Britain, so I never in all my years was based out of country. So we'd always go here, come back, go here, come back, go here, come back. And then about 76, they're going to start disbanding, because really a para brigade is obsolete. Yeah. We think that 12 C-130s all chugging along is going to drop a battalion, and then they're going to keep coming in afterwards, dropping backups and this and that. You know, today on the ground, you know, one guy that can't read or write is going to take all them aircraft out.
Yeah.
You know, but the ethos and the morale and the elan of the parachute regiment, they kept them. In fact, with all the big disbandments and amalgamations, the parachute regiment's the only one that never got touched, and they kept all 3 battalions, where most, since Desert Storm, they got rid of all 2nd battalion, but they kept the 3 because they realized these are your these are the ones you send in to a place and he's sorting out. So my unit was disbanded, you know, and it's nice to have an artillery unit, but they're not going to parachute artillery, and they're not going to parachute light tanks in. They're not going to do all this and that. I mean, so a Hercules, you'd be lucky if they get within about 50 miles of the drop zone, and then to come in about 650 feet, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I understand, because again, paras and Marines and units like yours are very expensive. So I ended up in a base workshop, and I thought, it's time. Perfect timing. I applied for selection to SAS. And I actually failed my first one because I overtrained.
Really?
I used to go out with about 60, 70 pound pack. And I mean, I used to push it. I was fit. I had good stamina. I'm 24, pushing 25, something like that. This was 77. And my knees just gave way. You may have noticed getting up from the chair. You know you're getting old when you make noises standing up and sitting down. And very, very good. It spoke to me, and he said, look, you know, I got to the very last day, the big endurance, and I just couldn't. And he said, look, when you go back, come back on the next selection. But when you train, just put about 30 pounds in your pack. He said, it's not the weight that's going to do it. You're not lifting weights. He said, what you've got to do is you just got to get used to carrying that pack. Because that's all SAS selection is. Day after day, week after week, going up over the hills. The hills got sort of steeper. The distances got longer. The weights got heavy. And you get guys that could run a triathlon, probably Olympic time. Put a pack on their back, face them on a hill, forget it.
Yeah.
And they said, just get used to having a pack. Just get your body used to the weight and adjusting itself to the stance to carry a pack. And I had a great time on my next selection. I think I got the 2nd or the 3rd best, because I knew what to do, how to prepare myself. And didn't do anything. A month before selection, it's too late now. If you're not fit enough now, if your stamina's not up there, an extra week or 2. And what you didn't want to do is don't get injured. Don't twist an ankle.
Right.
So for the last month, I may have just gone for a little run, a little jog or anything like that. And I passed. Oh, I'm telling you, I could have taken the world on my, you know. Always wanted it. Always, always, always wanted to wear that winged dagger with Who Dares Wins. Always wanted that buff beret with the black band, the same as what the Rangers adopted. And then you go on what is continuation, which is basically then, okay, you passed the fitness. You're in the 15% that did it. Now we're going to put you through basic training. Because people like me, I was not infantry. I had infantry skills, but I wasn't an infantryman. And the thing about my regiment was, you got about 50%, maybe more, were not infantry. The Royal Engineers probably had the largest contingent. So you had engineers, you had artillery, we had tank guys, we had guys from the Armored Corps. I remember going on exercise and stealing a Chieftain tank because the guys, click, get on. And one of the things about it all was, it had to pull us all in, take all the experience, the knowledge. They tell you, we don't want you 19, 20 unless you're exceptional. I knew one guy who was 19, totally and utterly beyond exceptional, one of the rarities. We want you to come into a team with experience. I mean, there was no recruits, there was no nothing, there was no, I've been in the army 6 months. No, we're not interested. Get about at least 4 to 5 years down. The average rank was E6 to E7. On my selection, actually, there were 2 sergeant majors that passed. Oh, wow. One was a infantry company sergeant major. The other was in ordnance supply with a para background. They go back to trooper. They don't lose money, but they're back to trooper, a sergeant major. A lot of them were like me, corporal, E6, a lot of E7s, much older. So then we go through basic medics, basic signals, basic weapons, and jungle training was actually part of selection. So they sent us down to Belize where we had to learn 4, 5-man patrolling, small unit works, because when you're 4 to 5 men, you're not really an offensive unit. Your job really is how the hell do I get out of there? Yeah. So it was more that way. You were an armed reconnaissance that did things beyond what the regular British Army was expected. And so we did that, did jungle training, loved every bit of it. Come back, and then the last thing is, and it was actually run by the SAS, it's a NATO school on combat survival, escape and evasion, how to live off the land. And you then had to go through 36 hours of interrogation. You're up against the wall, blindfold on, you're getting white noise, and you do that, and that was the last thing. And then I got it, wing dagger.
Do you remember how many started and how many actually finished?
I think about 80 or 90, and I think about, mind you, we had a pretty high selection rate because the parachute brigade was disbanding, the commando brigade, so the vast majority all turned up with previous airborne or previous Marine background, so there was quite a high, I believe probably about 15, maybe even high in this one is 20%. The one in front of me had 5 guys pass.
Yeah.
And it was, well, what they do is day 2, they take you out, put your pack on, 35 pounds, and they take you down to the infamous Penafan in Brecon Beacons. And it's about 1.5 miles up, 1.5 miles down, change instructors up at a regular fast pace. Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, you'll waste about 15, 20% because you get a lot of guys were into it because of the name. I can do this. I've got skills. I don't think I'm going to have to do it all. You may have found that in your background. The people that just wanted the name but didn't prepare themselves what's to come.
Yeah, they wanted to say that they've done it. They don't want to actually do it.
Yeah, they all wanted the little accolade. They all wanted, the great little badges and stuff like that. They all wanted the SAS beret, and for some reason they thought there's a back door, but there isn't. So what they do is just get rid of those that don't have a chance in the first place. And so I got sent to a Sabre squadron, and two things I wanted to do. I wanted to do Halo, and I wanted demolitions. I was taught basics, but I never actually did a DEMS class, but I was on a Halo troop. In its early days, this is before the ram air parachutes, we were still jumping rounds. And the negative in Britain is, compared to other countries, we'd go over to Europe and work with the Germans and the Belgians, and we found they were far superior than us.
It's midweek, you're tired, you're hungry, and you already know what's for dinner. The same 3 meals you've been rotating for the last 6 months. And look, there's nothing wrong with comfort food, but there's part of you that's been wanting something different. Something that feels like an actual experience, not just fuel. That's what HelloFresh has done for me. They send everything straight to your door, pre-portioned, ready to go, 0 grocery runs. But what's gotten me is the variety. There's over 80 global recipes every month. Vietnamese, Moroccan, Caribbean, ingredients like lemongrass, gochujang, curry paste, the kind of stuff you'd never just pick up at the store on a Tuesday night. But with HelloFresh, it's all there, set up for you, no recipe hunting, no wasted ingredients. I use it, and you should too. When dinner is this good and this easy, there's no excuse to default to takeout, because nothing hits home like home cooking. Go to hellofresh.com/micdrop10fm now to get 10 free meals plus a free breakfast for life. 1 per box with active subscription, free meals applied as discount on the first box and new subscribers only. It varies by plan. That's hellofresh.com/micdrop10fm to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life.
What we had was, going back to World War II, what commanded and run our parachuting was the Royal Air Force. And, you got to take it nice and easy. If we're looking at a new parachute, then we need to take 10, 15 years to look at this and all that. Where the Army, they put us on rubbish chutes to start off. We're all trained parachutists. Don't have to take us back to square one. Well, So I did that, and I loved it. I thoroughly and utterly loved it. Obviously, coming from a static line, low height now to halo, two completely and utterly different forms of transporting yourself to a war environment. So I did that, and I did about 7 years. I got to the stage where I think it's like, you talk to police officers, you're doing 25 years. So when you get to about that 15, you got to make that decision. I either go all the way and become a hostage to the pension, or if I got other options, look at them. So I did about 14 years in the British Army. The theory is that you enlist at 18 and you finish at 40. So it was 22 years then. So I had some personal things going on. There was some odd, stupid stuff. And I just thought, you know what? I think I'm going to change my rank to Mr.
Yeah.
And then it got a little bit silly, because then being in the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers, there wasn't that many. We're talking a large corps, 30,000 whatever plus, and there may have been a handful. So we had a little bit of a celebrity status, and I even showed, perhaps, go back, because I was a full sergeant then in my own unit. I was a full E7, full platoon sergeant level. Rank in the SAS didn't make anything. We didn't wear uniform other than when on ARPOD in the jungle, whatever, and we never wore rank. I didn't even know what rank half of my guys were. And they said, "Oh, you're coming back." They wanted to make me a sergeant major. I'm 30 years old. And send you to the recruit depot so you can wear your SAS wings up there. You too don't have to be a mechanic or a technician. And you got to be out of your mind. We're back to Monty Python again. I'm a good soldier because my hair's short and my boots are clean and I can march up and down the street. You got to be out of your freaking mind. No. Well, you look at it I forewent the full pension that at 70 plus years old would have been handy. But the obvious is I would never, ever be here. I wouldn't be sitting here now. I would never have come to the United States. I would never have had the opportunities that I did. I've been here now 42 years. I know the USA far more than I know Great Britain. I was telling people, I said, I've done 8 with H&K. We pack up a van with guns, ammo, everything. I've done 8 East Coast to West Coast return drives. I didn't even travel 30 miles from my own hometown. I have no idea. I knew what was there on a map. Never went 30 miles west of my hometown, but I went all over the United States, 4 time zones.
Wow.
Yeah. People say, you ever thought of going back? I said, there's 2 things I miss. The beer, to have a good beer, and I said, and I miss the rugby. I said, I don't watch American football at all. I find it wimpy. Yeah. Move for 15 seconds, talk for 2 minutes. Move for 15 seconds, take your helmet off, take your pads off, and tackle. Learn how to tackle. So when you've played, I'm Welsh, that's our national sport, is rugby. And how long is this going to take? 3 to 4 hours. Oh, you got to be kidding me. But I wouldn't be here now.
Had you stayed?
I don't have any regrets. Financially, it'd been nice. Other than that, maybe what would I have done?
Yeah.
Been another ex-soldier, another ex-serviceman working for the same companies, being treated, well, you're in the SAS, you don't mind sleeping on the floor somewhere. I do. My rank is Mr. now.
Yeah.
You may have left lieutenant, a captain, or a major. That's fine, but your rank is the same as me now, Mr. We're all X. We're all former something. And no, I'm glad I made the move. Very glad of it. I settled here. I said I married a first-generation American Mexican. There's a sense of humor for you. A Welshman married to a Mexican. Yeah.
How'd that happen?
She knew who I was, but 18 months before I actually met her. When I got hired by H&K, which was in a little bit of pure accent, America is not what you know. You can have all the degrees, you can have all the qualifications. It doesn't really mean anything. It's meeting that right person at that right time that says, you got what we want. And I learned when I left, because I worked for the Saudi Embassy when I first over there, doing security for the family and the ambassador. When I left, somebody said, well, go and talk to this guy, who sent me to this guy, who sent me to that guy, who sent me to this guy. And I ended up doing something there where the H&K was going to put on a little demonstration. So I got talking to one of the guys who was the vice president, saying, well, this is my background. I have an operational experience with MP5. So they invited me over there to have a look, and then they were going to hire me to work with another guy that I'm proud to say was a good friend of mine. It's Clint Smith, who was running Thunder Ranch down in Texas. It's now up in Oregon. Well, he was their training director, and they wanted me to work with him. And he said, look, Phil, I'm going to against you, but when I choose a number 2, I want to know a little bit more versus some civilian saying, you're not going to work with him. So I kept in touch. That's one thing I also learned. Just keep in touch. Keep there. Don't let it go. British system is you knock on the door, they don't answer, go away. American system, keep knocking. Bang that door down. Show you're serious. And I kept banging and banging. And I called up months later and I said, Phil, you're just the guy we want to see. He said, we got so annoyed with you calling all the time. We threw your business card and all your documents. Clint's resigned. We're looking for the training director. So I met with him. It was the 10th of November. My interview was the next day, the 11th of November, Armistice Day. And I got hired as training director 24 hours before, just because I bumped into somebody and I kept it all going. So I did that for 7 years and then wised up. And I love what I did. All the stuff I did in Britain, all the stuff that I did, Para Brigade, SAS, to me, had nothing compared to what I did here in the United States, working with some of the finest men and women I've ever had the extreme pleasure of working with. Cops, USA. There's some damn good women out there, so it wasn't just always the men. Working with the guys, very receptive to what I had to offer. And I found myself well in on it. And of course, there wasn't too many Brits doing this with a Heckler Koch background at the time. In fact, as far as I know, I was the only one, so it brings it back to the question. My wife. Well, my wife worked for an equipment company up in Chicago. And guys used to go in there, and she used to do everything from uniforms to guns. And she had a picture from a H&K magazine with me in full equipment. And guys said, oh, that's that Brit guy. They even called me English, which I'm not. I accepted it. And they said, oh, that's that guy, English guy, Singleton. So I was at the Illinois Tactical Officers Association. Great, fantastic group. And I was doing a class. I was one of the breakout instructors. And I just happened to be walking around the vendors. And apparently I had my name tag on. And one of the guys she works with saying, hey, you know, people, all the guys from Cook County and all the departments here talk about Singleton. Because they did a lot of work up in that area. And they said, yes, there he is. So next thing I know is I got this beautiful Mexican lady. This was 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving's the 22nd. So we got talking. Well, cut a story short, she packed up her job, packed up her house, everything. I put her on a Ryder truck, and she came down to my house in Virginia on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
You know, when you got it. Hey, yeah. Beautiful, wonderful lady.
That's quick work.
It was interesting because I don't know whether I'm an easy guy to live with or something. I suppose, you know, we all have our traits by then. And of course she had hers, and it conflicted. I mean, marriage, as they say, is a complete, misunderstanding between two idiots in some cases, and this and that. So we had I think probably the best part of it, we from two totally different backgrounds, two totally different ideas, two totally different, in some cases, ideas on what to do and how to do it. But we always came to the middle. It was always the middle ground. It was always the gray where we got the right answer to something. So at the time, I had a big custom log home up on 10 acres up in Northern Virginia, about an hour southwest of D.C., and she moved down there. I had dogs that she immediately stole through the stomach by feeding them. They wouldn't come near me. She gives us more food. Very, very happy, very, very content. And she could support me. That was the other good thing, too. Having been in the outskirts of the industry, she knew all about it, being an equipment supplier. And I said to her, this is what I do. I travel. It's the only thing I know how to do. I don't have any peripheral skills. I left school at 15. I don't have any skills. When I left school, this is long before anything technological came around. Computers, cell phones, don't even think about it. And I'm one of those, in Britain they call me a technophobe. I couldn't care less. I don't carry a cell phone. I don't want one. I don't want people calling me. I have a computer for email only. I don't have laptops. I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit there doing it all. But she could do all the typing, so she did all the background work. I concentrated on the classes, and of course in the early days she used to travel with me, and that was fun, somewhat. I want to go away, go out with the boys at night. Her wife's in tow, okay. Yeah. Fortunately, she had the same bad habits as me. You talk about the differences. My father used to take me drinking with him up to his pub at 15 years old.
Yeah.
You're old enough, you're 15. I don't know whether it's changed, but it always was you're not allowed to drink until you're 18, but you were allowed in the pub at 16. So we would go in at 16, 15, 16. And if we sat in the corner, and you or I were sitting in the corner, we're having a drink, we're having a laugh, enjoying ourselves, not being an idiot. 99% of landlords and everything say, yeah, that's how I started. We all started at that age. As part of it. Britain is far, far more blue collar. I never knew anybody that went to college. That didn't happen. Unless your parents were wealthy and they sent you to special schools and you got certain levels of education. 90% of the British Army officers, they didn't go to college. They had the academic qualifications. They're supposed to go in the Army, mess around for a few years, go out, go to college, and then take life seriously.
There's a certain outfit that you reach for every single day when you're home. The one that's comfortable enough to live in, but doesn't make you look like you gave up. For me lately, that's been the brushed bamboo jogger set and lake house clogs from Cozy Earth. They sent these to me, and I'll tell you, made from viscose from bamboo, incredibly soft, breathable, and the kind of quality that actually holds up over time. It's the outfit that makes getting off the couch actually comfortable. They back everything with a lifetime warranty on clothing and hassle-free returns, so there's zero risk. This Memorial Day, give yourself the kind of comfort that lives with you all day, not just the moment you get home. Cozy Earth's brushed bamboo jogger set and lake house clogs are designed to keep you cozy, comfortable, and actually relaxed all season long. Comfort lives here. Head to CozyEarth.com and use my code MicDrop, all caps, all one word, for up to 30% off, but only for a limited time. This exclusive offer runs from May 18th through June 1st only, so don't wait. That's code MicDrop at CozyEarth.com for up to 30% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, mention that you heard about Cozy Earth right here.
So it was interesting. Britain is very blue-collar.
Yeah.
Very blue-collar.
Forgive my ignorance. You mentioned that you're not English. Can you make the distinction of Welsh, English, British, like what the difference
America, you got 50 states. So I can't look at somebody from Massachusetts and call them a Texan. There's no way I would go down to a redneck bar in Alabama and call them a bunch of Yanks. Britain is 4 countries. The large main country with London, it is England. Now, I'm Welsh. I'm from Wales. Then you got the Scots. Then you got the Northern Irish. And the main island of Scotland, Wales, and England is Great Britain. United Kingdom is Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is the province of Ulster, that separated from the rest of Ireland, I think about 22, 23, when Ireland partitions are. Put it this way, don't go to Scotland and call them English. Talk about give me 3 steps.
Yeah.
You better run the opposite way. So I'm proud Welsh. I'm sorry.
No. It seems like most people understand or make the distinction between English, Scottish, and British, but they forget about the Welsh maybe.
Oh, God, I have fun with it.
Yeah.
I have fun with it. You know, where I work part-time now, which I thoroughly enjoy, I get people go, oh, where are you from? Are you English? And I go, no. I said, same area. Are you Irish? No. I said, go east. Go east from Ireland. Scottish? No. And I said, I'm not Australia, I'm not New Zealand, I'm not South African, I'm not any of this. And I said, there's one left. I said, the number one, the chief. I said, even the Romans couldn't beat us all and this and that. I said, the Welsh, Wales, Tom Jones, Anthony Hopkins, can you hear the lambs, Clarice? Bonnie Tyler, just a total eclipse of the heart. Yeah. I said, we're Welsh. And I said, watch the movie. It's a dumbass movie with Hugh Grant. It's called The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill and Come Down a Mountain. And it's supposedly in South Wales. And the distinction of, we're Welsh, that's England. When I had my wife over there drinking with my father's friends, and he said, you got to go to that blood-sucking parasitic country. My wife was, where? I said, England. You got to go to England? Well, that's where Heathrow is. Oh, you poor devil.
Yeah.
We're all proud to be British, but I think we all hang on to our own little distinctions. Yeah. If you're a Texan, you're from Florida, you're a Northerner, you're a Midwesterner, you're proud of that a little bit.
Yeah.
A New Yorker. Hey, I'm a New Yorker. Hey, what do you think I sound like?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Going back to your early parts of your career, there's a couple parts of your military career I'd like to highlight if we could.
Please.
You mentioned a deployment to Northern Ireland.
All the time.
What was it like when you were there?
Stupid.
Was it pretty violent?
Yes and no. First time I went over with the para battalion. I mean, every time I went over there, I found it the most stupidest, idiotic thing going. And you had mass intimidation. You know, the people there were great. I don't care if you're Protestant, you're Catholic. I don't care what you are. You know, your religion. And that was the stupid thing about it. Well, wait a minute, Protestants, Catholics, it's the same book. It's the same characters. You know, you got God, you got Jesus, you got this and that. And you just do it in a slightly different way. And you have to blow up women and children for that?
It's crazy.
And what it really was, it didn't really have any ideology to the degree. It just became the parting for the thugs and everything like that. You know, here's the gang, here's all the thugs from that one. And they just sort of sat behind a banner. I would say 95% of people, you could do a patrol in the heavy Catholic area, and you would hear the letterbox open. Take care, soldier. Mass intimidation. There's a funeral coming up. You better be there. And we just found it so damn stupid. I know one stage with one of the other, excuse me, one of the other tours, was a TV crew from the United States and one from Portugal had gone over there to film rioting and stuff, and then come to our area and it was quiet, and we had to pick them up and arrest them because they were paying the kids to go and throw stones at the soldiers because, well, they'd been sent there to film riots and all this and that and all the troubles, and they couldn't go home and say, nothing happened. So they were paying, so as far as I know, is they confiscated whatever reels they had and stuff and sent them home. So when I sort of hum an ad before, you've always got the one idiot. You always got somebody that has a go. When I was with 3-Padder, we had one guy, wounded, shot in the stomach, and then everything in that area just shut down. Because you want to play? You want to play big boys rules? Oh, we can play big boys rules. We didn't ask you to. We can play big boys rules. Fine, you shoot one of us. Stay out of our way, shut everything down. And what you would find, especially in the areas where the para unit is, anybody that wanted to go against the soldiers went to a different area. Now leave the paras alone. They're going to be gone in 3-4 months' time. And that was the stupid side. Leave us alone. We're not here to do anything. You're British. This is Great Britain. It would be like, the Russians up in Alaska want to take the area back. Well, too late. It's America now. Native Hawaiians want to take Hawaii back. It's America now. Enough. They're not going to be part. You're not going to take Ulster and make it part of Southern Ireland. It's not going to happen. Just move on. If you want to be part of the South, go and live in the South. Yeah. It's still open relations, still an open border. You could still travel back and forth. I never had a problem. Honestly, I'm not just being political or nice or anything like that. Never had a problem with them. I think it's like anything in life. If you want a piece of me, fine. You've got my attention. If not, go about your business. What you think of me, I don't care.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. And that's all it really was. It was just so freaking stupid.
Yeah, it's amazing to me the amount of time and bloodshed that took place.
When I first went over there, it was like a division of troops in the place. Just trying. And the other thing about it was, you've got 20% Catholic, about 80% Protestant. Protestants were being a little bit heavy-handed. There's no two ways about it. And, of course, we thank Oliver Cromwell for that, you bastard, and all that in Ireland and, Drogheda and all that. And actually, when troops were deployed on the streets, they were all based there. It's like saying, there's no troops in Alaska or in Hawaii. Of course there are. And there's battalions there, and they deployed them on the streets. And they actually had their back to the Catholic areas facing the Protestants, because the Protestants were the problem. They were there in defense of the Catholics. Next thing you know, we get it from behind us. It's like, what? So turned around, and it's been going since the 17th century. Yeah. Will it ever change? No, because there's too many idiots sitting back, causing too many damn problems. It sounds like, what is it? a Genesis song.
Yeah. Fast forward to the selection process, kind of glazed over that. I'm curious, to your knowledge, do you know the selection process that you went through versus how it's done today? Same exact thing?
It had to be the same.
Yeah.
You couldn't change anything, because then the new guys would never be accepted the way it was. Well, you didn't do what we did.
Right.
So the selection process is not hard. If you prepare for it, like I was talking earlier on, you train for it, you do the right type of training, you do it. It's not that hard. It's an endurance. It's day in, day out, week in, week out. Pack on your back. The distances get longer. The terrain gets more hilly. The weights get slightly heavier as it moves on. So it's just an endurance, which is what they want. You got an airborne unit, as we talk about, go in there, pow, 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 for days relieved. You get an SAS has got a job to do. It may take them 5-6 days to move into position. Not being seen, you don't heli an hour away.
Right.
You take time to get in there, look at the target, observe it for a couple of days, get routines, get down, then before you hit it. So you're looking at two different types of guys. You want the young, go kick-ass airborne guys, but you want the older, more mature, steadier guys. If I equate it to athletics, in the airborne you want sprinters. In the SAS, we want distance runners. Pace yourself and all that. And that's what you got. It's a much older group. As I said, I knew of one 19-year-old, but he was very exceptional. 21, 22-year-olds, now and again. I was quite young, and I'm 24, pushing 25. And all the guys that I got through were a lot older than me. Operational on the ground in a troop was over 30. On the ground, 30. So it wasn't like an infantry platoon, the average age being 19 or 20. Yeah. The sergeant, the corporals being in their mid-20s. The mid-20s were the youngsters. I said 2 sergeant majors, sergeants getting through. So it was an endurance. The thing about it all was, you can go out and you go and do a 10-mile run. That's no big deal. Do it the next day. And then the next day, then the next day, then the next day. And but what you're doing is the next day, you're only going out there now at 99%. Then the next day, you're going out at 98, 97%. So as you go through the endurance of it, you're getting tired. You have to be very careful. Don't run, no running. Don't put that foot down where you don't need it to be put down, because that's going to be, your brain and your heart can say, I'm going to do it, but if your twisted ankle says, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Nothing. So again, that was part of it. We want guys that can look after themselves, make decisions. Anybody can be told what to do. Sit there, stand up, put your pack on, get on the truck, get off the truck. I can find thousands and thousands of them, but we want the guy that can make his own decision, look after himself. Every time I come back from a walk, take my boots off, take my socks off, wash my feet, put powder on, put a light, because I know these are what's going to get me through, regardless of this. This and this, yes, those, absolutely. And they're looking, they're watching. Because you're in the jungle for weeks on end. I got to look after myself. I got to take care of my feet. I got to take care of myself. And that's what they're looking for. So the last week of selection is test week, where you have to do things in a certain time. And you're graded. An average walk, you get a C grade. If you do above that, you can get an A or a B. And the theory being is, you got 5 walks, you've got to get 5 C grades. So if you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you got 15 points you got to have before you can do the big endurance. So first 2, which are the easiest ones, you go like hell, get an A or a B. And then you get others. Then the last one, it's about 20 plus 30 to 40 miles over the Brecon Beacons, but it's taken on the map. No contours are taken into consideration. You got 50 to 60 pounds, and you got about 20 hours to do it, which really is, it may sound daunting, but it's really not. It's just keeping up. As you know, going downhill, I'll make up the time. Going uphill, I'll slow down. So it all balances, the peaks and the valleys of it all. And bit by bit, you start losing people, predominantly injury. You may get guys get up to test week, and I think the majority was all injury, and you saw them again on the next selection or a year later. Then you go through continuation and you lose people in continuation. Some people just didn't like the jungle, failed in the jungle. You then go through, the combat survival mode of things. And you had some excellent lecturers on, when you take them prisoners. I had one guy that was at the Hanoi Hilton, came over and gave us a lecture on that. One guy was at Colditz, so we were getting top-notch people who had been POWs and how to handle it all, what to do. Then you're taught what to say and all that. And then you got guys that would fail the interrogation side. So all the way along, you're being chipped away, until finally, what's left? In fact, the only other thing after that is if you weren't parachute trained, you then held on until you went on the next jump program, and then when you come back, then you were badged. But how can you be special forces if you can't parachute? Sort of a contradiction in itself, rather.
Yeah. Was there one part of the selection process that was the most challenging for you personally? Summer is coming up fast, and I'll be honest, I've been looking at myself thinking it's time to tighten things up a little bit. The thing is, I'm training the same, eating mostly the same, but my body just doesn't respond like it did, say, 10 years ago. And here's what most guys don't realize. It's not laziness, that's biology. As men get older, testosterone starts dropping as early as your 30s. And when that happens, your body starts storing more fat, losing muscle faster, and the frustrating part is the more body fat you gain, the more your body actually converts testosterone into estrogen. It becomes a cycle that's genuinely hard to break without addressing the root cause. That's why Mars Men has become part of my daily routine. They sent this to me to try and to give my honest take. And what I've noticed is steadier energy, stronger lifts, better recovery, and it's designed to support healthy T levels naturally. Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, zinc, boron, no synthetics, no needles, made in the USA, third-party tested, and backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. For a limited time, our listeners can get 50% off for life plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. It's also available on Amazon. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support this show and tell them that our show sent you. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition.
No, I think I programmed myself because I also remembered I had the advantage of doing one before, and I got all the way up till the last day, so nothing came as a shock. One of the things they do is called sketch map, and what they'll do is they'll give you a map. Now, it's accurate. It's taken from a map, and it's accurate. They'll draw that road in, or that bit of a wood, or that peak, but they put 0 contours in, and you could and they had the grid lines in. You could take a map reference, and what you do on selection, you had no idea what you're going to do, where you're going to go. You arrived there at your checkpoint, started off, you got off the truck, they'll weigh your kit, and they'll say, okay, your next point is going to be grid reference 895792, and they'll say, show me where that is, and then you get it there, you get your map and your compass, and off you go. And of course, the thing is designed where you're from here, then the next grid reference is here, but there's a damn mountain in the middle. So you can do what they call head down, ass up, and go all the way up and go all the way back down. And again, it's all part of that. Well, can you think? Can you think? It's like being a SWAT operator. I don't care how fast you can run. I don't care how much you can lift. I don't care if you're the police pistol champion. Great, that's fantastic. If you can't think, if you can't adapt, readjust, plan B, plan C, plan D. You're of no value to me. So you're expected to get it there. Then, I mean, if you can't operate a compass, if you can't find out what to do, how to do it, time and distance, because you know you got to go around it and get back, then you have no idea. You get to the checkpoint, then they give you another one. And they've designed it such that you're at about 5 different checkpoints, but you're not all going to the same place. So you'll see guys coming towards you, you'll see guys going across you, and of course that eliminates, don't follow the guy in front, because he may be going to a different place.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting, because typical South Wales weather, always used to say we have 3 weather patterns in South Wales. It's going to rain, it is raining, it just finished raining.
Yeah.
And of course, it rained, and then it was a warm day, so we got mist. So apart from sketch map, it was misty. And it was quite thick, not pea soup, it wasn't heavily thick. It was thick enough to, I got to be very careful here. Got to make sure my time and distance, my motion. How far have I gone? Looking at the map, I've gone this far. Now, about here, I need to take the second bearing, sort of get back on track a little bit. It went fine. I mean, I passed and all that sort of thing. I made all my checkpoints. I think it's just the overall thing is just an endurance. That's all it really is. Being able to stick with it day after day after day, week after week. And the weights get heavier, the distances get longer, and the terrain gets hillier. And look after yourself. Keep your feet. I mean, we go drinking every night. And you get the medical officer said, "Oh, don't go drinking. You got to keep yourself hydrated." So you're sitting there, and you got a bunch of former para-brigade guys who said you can't go drinking. We're going, "Yeah, right." Okay, we'll heed your advice. Okay,
yeah. That's classic. All right, so you spent around 7 years with SAS. Can you kind of walk through the operational time there, specifically the Iran stuff, but really anything else that you did while you were there?
Well, other than the stupid stuff in Northern Ireland, where we really didn't do anything. It was a political. Prime ministers would send over. You got the SAS there. I mean, never couldn't do anything. Because even though you're a soldier, we weren't in a war environment. You couldn't bring in artillery, or anything like that. And very much like the United States here, the laws to law enforcement is use of lethal force only when you're threatened, which is open to all soldiers and anything in Northern Ireland. So that the Iranian Embassy was weird. I think we used to equate it to an airfield firefighter. You got these highly trained guys with all the equipment and all this and that. They know how to do it. How many guys has been on an airfield, DFW, actually seen an aircraft fire?
Yeah, probably not many.
Probably in training only. And in a way, that's the way we thought. Okay, well, it has a counter-terrorist team. When I went on, I never even knew it existed. And it was until the embassy that it was even... It's taken seriously, of course. Everything, units like that do is taken seriously. But we never, well, what are we going to do? I mean, if it's out of the country, fine. We can have a little bit more leeway, perhaps. But in Great Britain, in a police state where the police don't carry guns, other than very special units, we have all this, and what do we think we're going to be doing? So the morning, Wednesday morning, 30th of April, by the way, the embassy siege was 46 years last week. Wow. 5th of May.
Like it was that?
May the 5th, 1980.
Wow.
46 years ago, last week. So April 30th, what we used to do is used to go and exercise once a month, and it wasn't really for us. What we would do is we go out to the constabularies, and we would have a hostage-taking exercise, and it was for the seniors in the police police departments or constabularies. If there was something that went on in your area, here's the things that can happen, negotiations, all this and that going on. So it was a command and control exercise, and the finale of it all, we would then do the assault. So we were due that morning to go up to Newcastle, northeast, and we had all the police escorts there because we could drive in our vehicles, but we needed police front, police back when it was official. And then we heard somewhere along the lines that there's something going on at the Iranian Embassy in London. So we're joking and saying, no, we're not going to Newcastle. We're going to go down to London. So Newcastle got put on hold. And the next thing we know is it's official. Something's happened at the Iranian Embassy and we've been deployed. And it was not sure whether the media was there or not, didn't see anybody. Well, the normal thing was to get a convoy, go down straight into London. And everything changes. Now it was, we'll just dribble out the gate, go out the back gate. We'll meet at this location. Take it easy, don't speed, do nothing, don't draw attention. So then we ended up there in London. Sat there for 6 days next door, going through plan after plan after plan after plan. As things come in and things upgraded, you've got to put all the contingency plans together. But the bottom line is, let's take stock of where we are. We're opposite Hyde Park, in Kensington, not necessarily, a cheap area. Half a mile down the road is Buckingham Palace. You've got Earl's Court just around the corner. You got a Middle Eastern embassy, and with diplomatic communities and everything, embassies. That's a piece of Iran in London. Britain has absolutely no jurisdiction in it whatsoever. And we're going to go hit the Iranian embassy. And yeah, all right, yeah, sure, okay. So sat around, twiddled our thumbs, briefed up, got it all. And we were told if they shoot two. So Monday they shot one, put his body out. Then all of a sudden, find out later the guy's name, I believe, was Lavasani, press secretary, devout Khomeini. And he said, if you're going to die, if anybody's going to die, I'll gladly die in the Islamic regime of Khomeini. So he did. Apparently, that wasn't known. They did a second one. Then all of a sudden, we're all thinking, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. We're close. We're like a diver stood on the end of the board. And we finally got you got the go, move into position. Like, holy moly, we're actually doing it. Went and did it. No idea how the fire started. We didn't do it. They always threatened that the front door is all barricaded and they'll set fire to the ways. Well, you expect that. What were they going to say? Oh no, everything's okay. We're not going to do anything. And we weren't known then. That was probably what put my regiment really on the map. Before that, it was great. We had a camp. We even had a big sign out on the road at To SAS this way. And that's what really put this regiment on the map, especially counter-terrorist teams. And so we went and did it. We came out, grabbed all our kit, went to a barracks. Margaret Thatcher was there. We're drinking Foster's beer.
When you say we went and did it, can you walk us through the actual operation?
Do you know, in all honesty, I'm not bluffing and bulling here. I remember a little bit what I did. We never really got a full debrief of what went on, who did what, where, when. Now, we knew from the briefing what the entry points were. By the time it was heavily on fire, and in the end gutted, it didn't necessarily leave by the same entry points. I honestly, to this day, don't really know it, because that was the anticlimax of it all. We all got in our vehicles, and we were all quiet. I think we were all just digesting. Did we just do what I think we just did? Did we just go and hit a Middle Eastern embassy right there, downtown London, around the corner from Buckingham Palace, and we used explosive entry to get in, and this and that, and we got home, went to work the next day. As if nothing had happened, we went back to our regular routine. And I think it's, I equate it back to police and SWAT. You get a team. I know Dallas PD very well. I did a lot of training. Two of my instructors I used to bring in, Gadjon, were Dallas PD, Mr. Steve Claggett, the poster boy. Good friend, him and his wife and family. But, okay, they went and did a SWAT assault. Okay, well, that's my job. Come back, a week later, or maybe days later, they go and do it again. Then they go and do it again. So really, for us, it was a case of, well, that's what we trained for. We did it. I know what really, in general, happened, because, we were all trained assault. Some of us were trained snipers. We were all trained this and that, and we were just spread throughout the building. So in general, I knew what happened and I knew the outcome, but the actual nitty-gritty inside, I don't know. And I've no doubt, from our perspective, as soon as that fire hit, and Plan B went out the window, Plan C, Plan D, Plan E, Plan F. And I think that's the sign of a good team or a good SWAT team. You used to call ourselves pessimistic optimists. When you think about it, it's perfect. We're pessimistic enough to know it's not going to go right. It's all going to screw up. But we're optimistic enough to, in the end, we will prevail. And I think that's what was happening. As we've been trained, we were all a much older group of guys, and we just went to Plan E, Plan F, and we all knew what to do. We all knew how to cover for each other. And it went, we killed 5 on the assault. 1 got out, and the women brought him out, and there was a big case of the Stockholm Syndrome. They left this young guy, the youngest of the terrorists, there with the women, so he's looking after them, and they were all young girls too, young Iranian girls, so they brought him out. And it wasn't until out there at hostage reception that we found the guy, but it's too late. I've heard stories that we tried to get him back in, and the police, no, he was out. And he is, or was, detained at Her Majesty's pleasure for 25 years. It's a wonderful statement. Yeah, the Queen was very, very happy. It was her pleasure.
Did you meet her after that? Or just Margaret Thatcher?
I've met Margaret Thatcher before. I've met then Prince Charles, and even going back to Lady Diana and stuff like that. But no, I mean, the Queen, even in 1980, she was 80. Just about, or, well, 60, 70, no.
I've been more intentional lately about what I'm actually wearing day to day. Fewer pieces, but better ones. Things that are comfortable, look put together, and don't require thinking about. Quince has been my go-to for that. They sent me some of their stuff to try, and the linen shirts and shorts have been on constant rotation. Lightweight, breathable, 100% European linen. They look sharp, but feel like you're wearing nothing. Their Pima cotton tees are the same way, soft in the way you have to feel to believe. Here's what makes Quince different. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're getting premium quality at 50 to 80% less than comparable brands. It's not a gimmick, it's just a smarter way to shop. I use this, and you should too. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/micdrop for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/micdrop for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/micdrop.
Those who were lucky enough that rarely, very rarely, guys got medals, got gallantry awards, would go to London and be awarded by her, or probably the king now. But Margaret Thatcher, she was big supporter of us. And for her, that was a huge, big success story because there was a series of major tests. It was quite an interesting time in Britain because you had the hunger strikers there in Northern Ireland in the prisons all on hunger strike. And she actually went on TV and said, British law says, well, you're not going to force feed them. And with her very deep voice, because actually she had a high-pitched voice, so she was trained to talk a little bit lower and get that high pitch away. You know, if they refuse to eat, they will die. Now, there is one clause. If they do go into some sort of coma, incapable of making a decision, the family next to kin can, and the next day, feed them.
Yeah.
Done. Then this was the second one. Then Falklands came up. Then she'd had problems with the unions, you know, and all this and that. Then the Falklands. So this was her second big test. Now, the other thing to keep in mind as well is, this is May 1980. What happened in April 1980 from an American perspective?
Yeah, the
Delta.
Yeah, the embassy raid.
The Desert One.
Yeah.
Where Delta Force went into to release the Iranian hostages weeks before.
Yeah.
So we were very, very, probably our closest international ally is Delta. In fact, on my selection, we had a guy that used to see him all the time on the History Channel, and he was the first guy that Beckwith brought into Delta, which name was Bucky Burris. In the books, he was called Buckshot. Well, he went through selection, and all he ever did was, and he did the whole thing too, because he used to say, well, just do this. He said, no, I got to get, because he's going to go back and set it up. He said, I got to get the whole perspective, all 4 weeks. So it's like any selection. The first week, standing room only. Second week, you can sit down. Third week, you can stretch out. Fourth week, you can lie out. And all he ever did was bitch about the South Wales weather. Does it ever stop bloody goddamn raining here in this goddamn...
Yeah.
Which lifted our spirits tremendously.
Yeah.
So...
going back to the embassy operation, leading up to it, did you guys have an understanding of kind of the politics behind it, or was it purely just looking at it from an operational standpoint of what... From
our perspective, I suppose like typical military, you've got all the top brass. I've known Margaret Thatcher, Home Secretary, our Brigadier, I know our Colonel was there, and they were probably all discussing options, senior police officers. You know, we were just the grunts on the ground. Yeah. You know, we... Millions and millions and millions and millions of us since history. All the big people, they can make all the plans and they can give all the guidance. It's not the guys on the ground.
Did you guys actually come up with the operational plan, or did they...
Oh, we planned it all.
Yeah. What was the original plan?
It changed minor. Well, the first thing you got to do, like anything, is what do we possibly have as entry points? How are we going to get in? It's a 6-story building.
How many of you were there?
I got no idea, to be honest.
Like ballpark?
Enough, but not enough. I mean, we weren't a big unit. I read books, and there was 60 of us, and this and that. There was enough of us, you know. Excuse me for saying there was enough. It's not a big team.
Yeah.
The SAS is not a big regiment, you know. We had enough to do it. We had to look at what are our entry points. You know, you got 5 stories above ground. Then you had the old lower basement area. Out the back, it was the full 6 stories. So your lowest level was the basement. So how are we going to get in? You know, and hence, as everybody knows, you know, the guys on the front there with the demolition charge. You know, you got the repellers on the back and all this and that. And it was minor modifications, but they were the only way we're going to get in. Down on the bottom level there, the basement, and of course, first floor. We believed they were all on the second floor. So anything like in military, you don't all batter and ram through the front gate. You surround. You've also got to keep your entry points, your entry options open. If that one can't work, go to another one. So the plan was quite straightforward. We had rudimentary room assault. It wasn't fixed position. We weren't chess pieces like on some SWAT teams. Their training is so fixed. And number one follows the yellow footprints. Number two follows the red. But that's fine for guys who run full-time teams who can train every day, every minute. We didn't have that luxury as such. And plus, as we knew, things change. You know, but what do they say, even in your background? The best laid plan survives the first round fired.
Yeah.
So everything was rather rudimentary. It wasn't a case of that we didn't plan deep enough. We left flexibility for the negative eventualities. And of course, the major one was, being on fire, having to put demolition charges down, repellers coming down. Can we get through the windows? Can we get in here? Can we do this? Can we do that? Where are we going to put the hostages? We're going to have to put them right outside there on the grass. So the plans didn't really change. It just got upgraded where we found certain things are not going to work. This isn't going to happen. We planned various different options. What if we let them out? They wanted a bus. Let them out. Okay, let's look at that. Dozens of different options. See, the thing about it all was we had the ace of trumps. We'd never been used before. We'd never done this before. I mean, when they interrogated the one guy that survived, he never ever thought that there was a unit like us that's going to do what we did. They were civilians. They had, some sort of weaponry, a couple of Chinese grenades. They never in their wildest imagination that was going to happen to them. So they thought, good old sleepy Great Britain, you go in there, you threaten them, you take hostages, you do this, you do that, and then maybe if it gets serious and you're tired, you shoot one, and the Brits are bound to collapse. They're bound to give in. Oh, give them anything they want. Get them out of here. And even the hostages weren't normal. You got a police officer with a gun on the whole time, because one of the few places that's armed was the diplomatic guards outside each embassy. He's got a revolver. He kept his coat on the whole time. He never ever thought of taking his gun out. You got two members of the BBC are taken as hostages. We didn't even have just regular hostages who were all Iranians. We got two media guys. You got a police officer. You got this. So it's like, oh God,
Do you know what their demands were, like why they did what they did and what they were trying to accomplish?
Well, what you had was post First World War. I mean, Britain especially has carved up countries. You got the whole what was once Palestine, Israel, and that was post-Second World War in the 40s. Britain was tired, and they had Mesopotamia, what we know today predominantly as Iraq, and some of the other Middle Eastern countries up there, Saudi Arabia to sort of come around a little bit there. Then you had what was Persia became Iran, and right down where Kuwait is and all that, right on the bottom there, the Shat al-Arab, there was a whole group of people who actually spoke Arabic. They were from Arabistan. But political carve-up, put a line straight through there. You on the east side, oh, by the way, you're now Iranian, you got to learn Farsi. You on the west, don't worry about it. You're not big enough to worry about. So it was the old case going back in them days, recognition and autonomy for the people of Arabistan. And they had their own, I wouldn't call it a terrorist group as such, just political organization. They called it Dremla Democratic Movement for the Arabistan, and it was funded by other Middle Eastern countries. It was trained and everything, but they never ever thought it would happen. They thought that we would back down, and in a way, so did we as the assaulters. This isn't going to happen. This is Iran. I mean, we had to have permission from the Ayatollah Khomeini to enter his property. So at some stage, I worked for the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Wow.
He didn't want it to go on. He said, yeah, I'd go in. If they're against me, do what the hell you want type of deal. But
all right, so I want to talk about something I didn't think I'd ever, frankly, care about, and that's taking care of your skin. I'm not a guy with a routine, never have been. But when you're outside a lot, dealing with the sun, the wind, the cold, your skin can really take a beating. And at some point, you start noticing it. Dryness, irritation, just looking worn down. Particle sent me their face cream to try, and I have to tell you, what sold me is how simple it is. It's one product. 30 seconds after you shower or shave. It's not greasy. There's no overpowering smell. It just works. There's no 10-step routine, no nonsense. If you want to take care of your skin without making it complicated, this is it. Go to particleformen.co/micdrop and use code MicDrop to get 20% off. Again, that's particleformen.co/micdrop, code MicDrop, all caps, all one word. It's simple, it's no nonsense, takes a few seconds, and you're good to go.
the big plan was pretty good. Minor modifications. Inside, hell of a lot of modifications. You couldn't, because the other thing is, we didn't have the full floor plans. I'd go into a room and the door on the floor plans was over there, but no, it's over there now. So in other words, everything was normal.
Yeah.
Everything was back to deep breath. Okay, it's already screwed up. We gone in the first room and all this and that, and it's already changed. We're back to normal again. And it just, as I said, I knew what the generalization of the plan was. I can't remember personalities who was doing what. I remember some repellers. I remember the guys on the demolition charge there, what their general job was, and this and that. Then everything sort of changed, and we never bothered asking. That was the thing about it, Mike. Just, okay. We did the job we were trained to do. And I've had, especially living in the United States, as far as I know, I'm the only member of that assault that's worked. I know that other people came in, maybe done something, gone back, but to actually live here. I mean, I had Time Life books on me all the time. I had BBC, calling me all the time, this and that, various others. TV channels wanted me to go on and stuff. Anytime there was like a hostage, they wanted me to be one of them experts. I said, no, I'm not interested. That's just one of the odd things about me doing this in a way, I suppose. I got one guy, BBC, and I think this is the crux of it all. I don't like seeing a lot, even though my friends on Dallas PD, they had that A&E, and it's like, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Whatever you do, whatever your team does, keep it secret. Nobody needs to know what's going on. And it got stupid. Even talking to Dallas, it got out of hand a little bit. And I got this one guy, and I was in one of them moods. And I said, go on then, ask me some questions. He said, the explosive charge on the front of the building, what was it? I said, explosive charge. And he asked me the same question. Well, how many men did it? I said, enough, but a few more would have been nice. Okay. He said, you're not going to tell me anything. I said, it can happen again. It can happen again. As we're talking now, the same thing can happen again. And I said, it's going to be worse, because now they know what to expect. And I said something to him that I knew I would never hear from him. I said, here's what you're going to do. I want you to go back over. I want you to go up to our base. I want you to get all the wives, all the parents, the kids, the relatives, everything. I said, I want you to get them all in a room, and I want you to say to them, so I look good in front of my editor, I want to disclose what happened. And if everybody there, especially all the wives, whose husbands, on the current team, and sons, whatever, uncles, fathers, I said, I'll consider talking to you. Well, of course, I never got that call. And that was the thing about it. It can happen again. And that's why perhaps you may feel I'm pulling, it can happen again. So who knows? Technology's changed. 2 weeks ago, I was down in Austin, and I was at the Texas Tactical Police Officers, Shannon, George, doing that, and surprising. Whereas before you go there, and it was all very physical lectures, but it was all technology, use of technology today. And in a way, I endorse it. If I can find a very, very cheap piece of technology, a robot, to take the place of a human being who has a family, has a wife probably, may have kids, then that's the thing to do. Let's let a machine, like we see in ordnance, IED ordnance. Hey, I'd rather lose a $3,000 little damn tractor than, human beings.
Yeah.
Or Humvees. And technology today has become a little bit cheaper. And it's just the technical side. I mean, the tactics are still the same. As we know, as a soldier, a sailor, we're going to hit that hill. That hill is not ours until our troops are on it. All-round defense, holding it. Then and only then can we say it's our property. So very similar to doing anything we had to at some stage, or if it happens today, we've got to make entry, and we've got to secure each room. We've got to make sure everything's secure. We do a double sweep, we do a treble sweep. You may find somebody hiding or something like that. Then it's ours. So with all the technology, it still comes down to an operator with his equipment and his weaponry and his training and his personal motivation. That will never change, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I understand. From a resistance standpoint, can you say whether or not they put up resistance? Or
No.
So you guys got
They did not expect it at all.
Yeah. So
they did not expect it. As I said, they had, guns and Chinese grenades. I mean, they were taken by surprise as much as all the hostages and stuff. And the hostages were sheep. I mean, they were so stunned. They had no idea what's going on. And I know when position I was in, don't shoot me, don't shoot me. And they actually thought we were part of the negative side of the assault, not rescuing them. It wasn't really till they were outside and hostage rescue that they started to come down. But no, there was nothing. Next time, possibly, because now they know. Here in the United States, you talk to SWAT guys, you talk to the local guys here in all the departments. SWAT team, you had an occupational hazard. We know the chances are you're going to come in one day. So let's get what we can before that occurs. And I think today, counter-terrorist-wise, I mean, the big four, United States, Great Britain, Germany, and France, GIGN, GSG-9, Delta, SAS, we all work together, we all train together, we all swap ideas with each other. And who knows? Yeah. The same thing can happen.
That is one huge difference between the UK and America, where there's specific laws that prohibit an operation like that from happening. Only SWAT teams within law enforcement would do something like that. They're not legally allowed to use any U.S. military to do an anti-terrorism operation here in the United
Maybe
States.
the feds,
HRT
other than that,
with FBI or something. But
yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to what we were talking about earlier on. We never ever thought we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Here we are, we're soldiers. We're not in the National Guard. We're not militia that's going to defend the Great Britain from an attacking enemy. We're in downtown London, and here's Iranian property. It isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why we were all shocked afterward.
Yeah. You were as surprised as they were, it sounds
Yes, I said, we're driving back. We were all silent.
Yeah.
Everybody was in their thoughts. Did we just do that?
And that nobody from your side was injured?
Minor injuries, all walking. One guy on the rope Sir Tom got burnt a little. Another guy got a minor injury on his fingers and stuff like that, but nothing serious. We took no rounds, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't believe any came our way.
Yeah.
As I said, we totally and utterly overpowered them all completely.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've got a note that we talked about Northern Ireland, obviously the embassy operation, but Belize, Brunei, Oman, and the Falklands were all areas that you deployed to as well during your time?
Well, Belize, when British forces were still there, Belize used to be British Honduras, and you got Honduras next door. The threat was that Guatemala wanted a Gulf of Mexico port, so they pushed Belize out of the way. The advantage of Belize is the most mountainous area in the whole of Central America. There's like 2 ways in, that's it. That's why they only needed 4 Harriers. And units like myself we had just one battalion, and it was used more for jungle training, more than getting out the way. Small SAS group there with radios and 4 Harrier jump jets could hold the whole Guatemalan army off. And it's where we did selection. I actually enjoyed it. It was a great country because number one is we were probably British soldier, even though we weren't paid much. We were probably the number one contributor to their economy.
Yeah.
Because we had the money and everything was cheap. You go and buy a bottle of Appleton's rum for the $1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we used to go out onto the little cays there. You got the second great barrier reef in the world just off Belize, all the little islands there that today is a huge, diving location. All the hotels and stuff. Then, a couple.
Yeah.
Actually, we used to go out with the fishermen. We used to go fishing with them.
Yeah.
Fantastic fun. Brunei was just a jungle trip.
Okay. So in Belize, did you guys do any operations there?
No, nothing going on.
What about the Falklands? Did you operate there?
Not as much. We were the 3rd squadron down there. I spent most of my time on Ascension Island. You had 2 of the other squadrons down there, D and G. They were there, and they had us in B as like a backup.
Yeah.
And plan after plan after plan after plan after plan. They tried to deploy us right at the very end, and half got down there, and the other half didn't. My half didn't get down there. We take a 12-hour flight from Ascension Island. Interesting, because I was up in the cabin to watch something that was very, very rare. They had to be fitted, was a Hercules with a refueler, big, cone over the top. Well, the second one came in, was broken. Around we come again. Go back the next day. And then what you had was I don't know whether they were Air Force or Army. All our equipment was in boxes with parachutes. And apparently what these idiots did was they just pushed the back one, so they push them all out. But what happened was, as they all went into the slipstream there, all the parachutes were on contact release, so they all went. All the chutes flew off, and half of B Squadron's equipment went to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, wow.
So you had guys landing there. It was virtually over with anyway. You had troops moving in. 2 Para was the first battalion to move in to Stanley, 3 Para after that, and they were told to move out because the Marines have got to take Stanley back and all that. And they were walking around with dry suits on and what little clothing they had underneath. So it was rather an anticlimax for me in that. I didn't do anything. I didn't do half the things that D Squadron did.
Yeah.
G Squadron. We were never deployed onto East or West. It was the different plans that came up were quite interesting.
I'm curious. I mean, the Falklands as kind of an entity in UK history, looking back on it, what do you think of the decision that the UK government had in terms of its involvement in the Falklands? Like, do you look at it as a mistake?
Them islands, I know from Argentina, it's called Malvinas in Spanish, but they've always been British. I mean, they're British people. They're white British talking English. I mean, sure, there may have been the odd Argentine or something else there, but those were British islands. That was a British country. So at a time at the end, people say, Britain, you lost your empire. No, we didn't. We actually didn't. It wasn't like the Roman Empire where the Vandals come in and sack Rome. We just modernized. It's now way past into post-Second World War. You think Canada can rule itself? Do you think India can rule itself? Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, then Rhodesia. So it just became a case of, here you go, run your own country. But they're still part of the Commonwealth. Every year they have all the Commonwealth, all these countries, Canada, and they send all the guys and they all get together there with the Queen. So it was just easing back. And I suppose you could say it's at the end of post-colonial. The other thing you got to look at too is with the other things that we had going on 82, we still had Hong Kong. We hadn't handed that over because of our 99-year lease. We got Gibraltar. Now, Spain. I mean, how many countries would love to take Gibraltar over? Because you run Gibraltar, you own the Mediterranean. So there was also the weakness. If we all of a sudden turn to the people of the Falklands, say, and South Georgia, we're sorry, you're on your own. What would then be happening? Would other countries be going, maybe now is a time to start getting back all these little protectorates all over the place. Maybe now, Guatemala may be thinking, maybe we ought to now think about having Gulf of Mexico, Eastern Port, Spain. How many troops are there on Gibraltar? So there was the concern for escalation, I suppose. If we show weakness once, plus they're British, what do we do? Be like, Japan wants to come and take Hawaii over again, and you say, okay, you can have it. We can't be bothered. No. No, Guam and all these other countries out there. No. They're American now. So I don't have a problem. Quite the contrary. It was good to see that it tested the ordnance, the supply, how to organize a task force, how to organize ships, how to take this, how to pack up ships, put enough equipment on there, ammunition and everything, how to send it all south. It's going to take days and to be able to do it all, put 9 battalions down there, put them on the ground. It was tremendous undertaking, really, when I look at it. Tremendous organization to do that. So perhaps on the other side it could have been a damn good exercise. Let's have a look at mobilization. Can we do this? Can we do this round the world? And also to all our enemies, yes, we can. Don't start thinking about playing games. Yes, we can. Yes, we will.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that, yes, we should have done it. Yeah. And I'm glad we did. And as I said, we handed Hong Kong back over because it was only a lease anyway. I think that the big fear of Hong Kong was because I spent 4 months there with Airborne Engineer Unit. Totally different country, and the amount of people, it was almost like East-West wall in Germany. They wanted to get into Hong Kong, and then the border went down and it became part of China, but they are allowed to maintain some degree of autonomy as Hong Kong, still financial and all this. So that was good. I'm very glad of that. Gibraltar will still hold on. I believe we still got British troops in Cyprus, because I did a 6-month UN tour with 3 para wearing a blue beret, excuse me. Yeah. But there were still, rudiment British Army battalions there. Royal Air Force Akrotiri, still an active RAF base on Cyprus. So there's still these little places around. So Falklands, to me, was a damn good mobilization, live fire exercise that had a lot of okay, guys, rest of the world, back off.
Yeah, take notice.
We're not just this little group of islands. Our France, we still have a navy. We can still deploy.
Yeah. What was the decision-making process once you decided to get out and not do the full 20-plus years?
As I said, I had a lot of... I lost a little bit of esteem with one or two of my bosses there. What it is, we were out in Borneo. 5 of us went off to do like a recon. The next morning, 3 of us, it wasn't malaria. I got a jungle fever, and it hit me probably more than it did the other 2 guys. So I got medevaced, and I was weak. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do this. The temperature was going up and down, up and down. Well, we had a blood and guts and thunder. There was nothing wrong with you. When you lose your legs, you crawl on the stumps. There was nothing wrong with you. You were just ill. Like, okay, well, it wasn't quite that. So there was a slight threat of me losing my operational status. You could stay in the regiment. We may move you out of a operational squadron, find you something else to do because you only got ill in the jungle. How dare you, sort of deal. We had some tests done, and I was really weak, and then they put us in this little hospital in the main town there, Bandar-Seri-Begawan, and they're used to locals, so for meals we were getting fish heads and rice. So, we were just... And it sort of went against me a little bit. I didn't go to the SAS to be out with the territory or the National Guard units or something like that. I probably had another year or 2 operational, and that's why I even thought I'd go back to the British Army. I go back to the sergeant's mess. I go back to a full E7, go back to gunnery sergeant, platoon sergeant level, and a little bit of other things on the personal life happening, and I just thought, you know what? If I'm going to do it, now's the chance to do it. I'm going to do it, otherwise I get hostage, and then by the time I've got 17 years on, I got 5 years to go, and they can do what the hell they want with you, because you're just going to have to suffer 3, 4, 5 years. And I just thought, no.
Yeah.
Like previously said, I'm here now.
Yeah. And the opportunity presented itself to come to the United States and spend years training with law enforcement and such. How did you get linked up with H&K, and do you have U.S. citizenship here? I'm
a U.S. citizen. Yeah. As I laughed at my friends, I said I had to drop my IQ by 50 to pass the test. I left the military. I went to Saudi Arabia to teach riot control, and there was a group of us teaching riot control. And then I got offered a year's contract in Washington, D.C., and you had the Saudi ambassador, and in London, he was a defense attaché, and his background was Air Force. So he was trained, he went through British Air Academy, Cranwell, and they were all flying American jets, so he'd been over to America learning this. So he and his family spoke English perfectly. And then he got promoted to ambassador to the United States. But what he'd picked up as the defense attaché was he picked up a British team. He picked up ex-servicemen. He liked the team, and he brought the team with them when he got ambassador. So the team came over, and I just came over as member of that team on a year's contract. So we did that. Loved him. Pleasure working with him. His wife, Haifa bint Faisal, youngest daughter of the late assassinated King Faisal. We loved her. We were in love with her. And look after the kids and do this. It was very interesting. So I left, and I didn't want to go back. I was living with a lady then, so I stayed and lived with her. And you talk about circles. I joined the Army as a mechanic. Okay, I go to the Airborne. I go to the SAS. I'm bodyguard for the Saudi Arabian ambassador. Guess what I am? I'm back in a blue pair of trousers with a white shirt with my name tag on, repairing diesel pumps at $4 an hour. I go back to being a mechanic. Talk about the circles. Don't ever say, not doing that again, because I did.
Yeah.
So, and I was just getting the legalities. And things were a little bit different then, because I even went to immigration, and I said, this is who I am. I said, I got an A2 visa that's run out because I'm no longer working. And they basically told me, said, oh, no problem. Go and get a blue-collar job. Go through the process. He said, whatever you do, don't leave, because you're not going to be back in. That's immigration telling me, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Go and get a job. And maybe because I had skills and I had knowledge, I had opportunity, fine, go and do it, Give something back to the United States more than just being a refugee and taken. So I did that, and I finally got my green card. So I went through all that process, and I was the diesel mechanic. I did that for over a year, but like I was saying earlier on I'm doing it, but I knew that wasn't where I was going to stay. So as we always say, I got to keep my 6 o'clock, my back door open. So that's when I said I spoke to somebody. No, go and speak to this person, go and speak to that. And I worked at a guy that puts bodyguard schools on, and it was in Winchester there. And H&K come out, and I spoke to them. And then, of course, Clint Smith, who they wanted me to be with. I'd have loved that. I mean, what a great man. I'm proud to say he's a good friend. And his wife now, Heidi, great people. I'd have loved that back then. And I got that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, you can imagine, right? You just leave, and you end up in London. And they say, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go over to Europe. Okay, we got a class, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go across, you're going to drive down through France, you're going to go over the Pyrenees, and you're going to do a class in Portugal. Then when you come back, no, we're going to send you to Switzerland and to Austria. Oh, and this is the good one. You're going to go over there. We want you to go up to Denmark and then cross and then go up into, you're like, sounds good to me. So you got this Brit. When I worked at the embassy, I was on the team about 3 weeks, and he got bored, and he wanted to go somewhere for Christmas and New Year. So one of his cousins or brothers or something had a big house in Aspen, Colorado. So we're going to go to Aspen, Colorado skiing. Oh dear. Yeah. I suppose.
It's a tough
yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yes. So we did all that. So I knew Colorado, I'm flying in there. I knew Aspen. I'd been Maryland and Northern Virginia, D.C. Then all of a sudden I land this job, and I said, well, go. What do you want me to do? Train U.S. law enforcement. And again, we're talking really 87. At a time when SWAT teams, even in the United States military, everybody was using MP5. SWAT teams, there was two types. Those who had them, those who wanted them. So for me, it was perfect. I'm H&K. I can turn up on the class and give everybody an MP5 to class. You don't have to worry about traveling with your guns, especially if you had to get on a plane. I'll turn up with the guns. Just turn up with ammo and everything else. I'll give you magazines. I'll give you all this and that. And of course, what we'll do is we'll give you a certificate with H&K right on that certificate. And it was fantastic. I'm driving across the United States. I'm doing this and that. I'm learning something you said earlier on too. I come from a counter-terrorist military background. There's the bad guy, shoot him. To, oh no, it don't quite work that way. You got to have absolute total justification before you shoot that person or persons will not shoot you or somebody else. Use of lethal force. And of course, I'm a counter-terrorist, use of lethal force. They're the bad guy, shoot him. Yeah. And it don't quite work. So I had a very, very abrupt, very quick, and I heed. That's one of the things I suppose I could say is I wasn't, don't worry about it. I heed advice, especially in what was to me then, of course, was a foreign country. Even though I nicknamed it the colonies, I'm over here in the colonies and stuff like that. Well, didn't we kick your ass? I said, no, we tactically withdrew. In Britain, we don't call it the Revolutionary War because there was no America, not until, it was 1783. So, Declaration of Independence and everything, 1776. You were colonials, you were Brits in a British colony. The new worlds, the new colonies over there west. Wasn't until the Treaty of Paris in 1783 that you actually become the United States. So I kid him on that. Said, you were just a bunch of moaning, whining Brits. Shut up. Which obviously didn't last too long. Because aren't you a little bit surrounded, Phil? Not a little bit, quite a lot. Yeah. So I did that. And I had tremendous fun. I'm working with a group of people who wanted my knowledge. You always get the one or two odd idiots that think he knows more, and that's fine. You do and say whatever you want. The vast, vast majority were open to the knowledge. And I think if I had to pat myself on the back, I also listened. So my classes changed because I'd be upgraded by what goes on in the American. Of course, something happens, then the laws change, so I got to change what I do. I thoroughly and utterly enjoyed it, traveling all over this great country. And then I looked at it, and coming in from the side, I didn't come in from a third world country, what you going to give me? I came in from, at the time, the fourth most prestigious country in the world, Great Britain, United Kingdom. And I had that ability to look at it from the side. So I'm working at H&K. Then I looked at it all, and Horace Greeley's Go West, Young Man. Yeah, but it wasn't so much go west, it was go on, do it. And one of the things that I thoroughly loved about America is, in Great Britain, it's the bankers, the old school tie, the old school handshake. You want to get on, well, you better have somebody supporting you, backing you. America, hell no, go do it. You get bankrupt, so what? Kick yourself up the butt, turn around, go and do the same thing again, having learned. And I just love that because really that was our ethos. Yeah. No, we're going to have a plan, but it's flexible. I'm going to give things a go, but I'm waiting to see what happens. What is in my way? What allows me to go forward? When do I go back? When do I take a pace to the side? So I sort of looked at that, and some of the places I went before I left H&K, I would say, look, I'm going to be very egotistical now. I said, if I was to come here on my own as me, would you still be interested? And I said, remember, I can do this far cheaper. Far, far cheaper. H&K by then, we'd establish, under my rule, of course, you got to do a week's operator, hang around and do a week's instructor. It's a lot of time for a lot of guys to spend a weekend on expenses. It's a lot of time for guys to be gone. And I said, hey, I can do this in 6 days, which means I'm a third of the cost. The only negative is I can't put a H&K stamp on a certificate. And then it come back and said, well, but your reputation, you was H&K. You're the one that put the whole training division together. Clint did a good job. He had too much politics with him, and it stopped him doing it a little bit. And he could never really take off on it, where I had a different background, so I didn't really care too much about the shotgun. Shoot a handgun, the safest place for you to be is in front of me. But of course, MP5, sniper rifles, all that, full auto, yes, that's my world, which was H&K. So I found out that, yes, a lot of places would support me. So I got the stage where the CEO was a good friend of mine. We were good friends. In fact, he after then moved off with Benelli, and he brought me in to do some classes with Benelli. So no negative. It was just time for me to move on. Another chapter in the book of life. Yeah. So I left, and in the interim period, just to settle down, I went back to Saudi working with the Royal Guard, and then I came back, and I put Singleton International together. And it started off in an office with nothing. Didn't even have a business card. What am I going to call myself? And then I thought, am I using my own name? Is that a little bit egotistical? And then I got a thought, well, no, you got to start thinking business. They know me as Phil Singleton. If I said I'm going to be some company or other, Diamond International, I said I'd just disappear into the woodwork. But they all knew my name. So I did that. And I lived up in the hills. This is long before cable and satellite TV. And my TV broke down. So for about 5 months, I had new TV. And I was there on my own for a while, and I just sat down on a computer and I put everything together. I put handouts together. And a good friend of mine that was hunting beach PD in California, he'd call me up and he said, hey, what do you think about O.J. Simpson? What about him? I said, is he that footballer? Yeah, you mean you don't know anything about it? I got no idea. I don't have a TV. And he said, you must be the only person, certainly in America, in the world, has no idea what the hell went on there. I said, I got no idea. Why? What happened? And he said, well, don't say anything. You'll end up on the jury. Because, and to be honest, that was the best time. I had enough funding so I could take that time off and just sit down there and do it for me. What I thoroughly enjoyed is, after 27 years of it, is I like my own destiny. If I screw up, it's because I failed, not some dumbass, stupid political decision made to me by a salesman. And there were some that came out. If I fail, I could shake my head, kick myself in the butt, take a pace back or to the side, regroup it, and then do another approach. The other side of that, I suppose, is if I'm successful, then I can say, okay, Phil, you're on the right track here. This is long before listening to Shark Tank and all this. And I liked that. I liked the control over my own destiny. Well, 27 years, and you're talking about an industry, I proudly would say, I'm not an ego guy yet. I'm not naive or stupid. I know who I was. I know the product that I produced. And in a world, where SWAT and full automatic, if I wasn't producing the product, I'd have been swept out of the way. I mean, there was guys come into this and they promise this, promise that. Their websites are phenomenal, and a couple of months later, you don't hear from them. Yeah. So I suppose gladly I could say 34 years later, COVID just shut me down.
Yeah.
January 2020, where'd I go? Oh, I did a shoot house instructor program with some great guys down in Manatee County, Florida. They had a superb shoot house. I then came back and I drove 5 hours up to Yonkers, New York. Hey, how you doing? And all that with the Yonkers guys. I came back, and in February, I did a class in Visalia, Central California. Came back to hear that the whole world's been shut down with COVID.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like driving my car into a solid concrete wall. I went to a local supermarket because there was nothing. And I got a part-time job in the produce department. So I'd gone from a SWAT trainer, training the UN. I had UN places. I went to Beirut 5 times, down to Tyre. They sent me to Nairobi, to Kosovo, to Chad. There's a lovely place. And all that to produce department in a local supermarket.
Wow. It's a bit of humble pie, maybe.
Well, guess what I'm doing now?
Yeah.
I work in a different supermarket. I'm in the produce department part-time. It's the best job I've ever had. Yeah. I retired. I got it all. I had 57, 58 years in the workforce. I got to the stage where I've had enough of this. Getting up at 4:30 in the morning, because starting at 6, 1.5 hours each way. I said, you know what? I'm on Social Security now. British Army changed a little bit of thing because they cut so much. They cut at least 50% since Desert Storm, that I got a small percentage of a pension. So I'm doing that, and all I do is 20 hours a week. I go in and I pile bananas and fruit and potatoes, and I have a great time.
Yeah.
There's no stress. There's no frickin' computers. There's no kids on their cell phone every 2 seconds. Yeah. And perhaps one of the things is that's, talking with my friend here and stuff like that. At my age now, at 72, I know how to talk to people. I can talk to women in their 50s and 60s and 70s, where the youngsters there can't, because to them that's grandmothers, great-grandmothers, so they don't know how to talk. I do. They were the same age as me, so they were young, 16, 17, 18-year-old young girls or guys with the same motivation and thoughts as I had at that age, as we all had, and this and that. And I said, just because there's a little bit of white on the roof there and the outside of the body, it doesn't look good like some old house. I said, believe me, inside the fire is roaring and there's a very welcome hearth. Yeah. And so I know how to talk to them. I know how to make laugh and joke, and of course, still retaining my accent a little bit there. And we'd have laughs and jokes with women. People would come in and they learned to know me. Oh, I've been over to Britain. I've been to Wales. Oh, we loved it. Did your wife like Wales? I said, my wife loved Cardiff. She loved my father. Her and my father said they're going to divorce my mother and me, and they're going to marry each other. She loved it. She loved Cardiff. She said the way of life is a lot relaxed. And her favorite pub right opposite the castle was the Goat Major, because the Welsh Regiment, like the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, their mascot was a goat that goes back to the Crimean War era. Goat Major. That was her favorite place in Britain. And the only place I've ever known other than Lebanese is where she would drink beer. And she loved it. If I had one of them jobs and I was over here from Britain, I said, well, they're sending me back and I'll be home in 2 hours. I go home and I find the whole house packed. She'd be sitting on it. Come on, when we going? She'd love to do it. Yeah. So I find, I did a couple of jobs in the middle. I'm in my late 60s to early 70s. What am I going to do? Right. I'm slowing down, whether I wanted to or not. I'm slowing down. I didn't want a full-time job, and I did some, and I was just in basic security, and then I got enough. So now I'm making a little bit of pocket money that I can afford all my bad habits, alcohol and a good cigar. I still love cigars, even though they're expensive. I'm at that stage where, you know what, I'm not going to change. Yeah. If I'm dead in 2 years' time, I can honestly say, and I can look back and say, Phil, I enjoyed myself.
Yeah. Well, that's the key. I can't help but think the lack of understanding that most people walking into the grocery store seeing you stack bananas know what your background is. Like
some do, because it's a small town, and what the hell are you doing here? Yeah. And they knew me when I worked out of my home. I only lived 5 miles from the town then, big log home up in the hills and stuff like that. So old relatives and friends, what the hell are you doing? The guys I work with, I just told them, I'm going to Dallas. They don't know what I'm doing now. And I'm not even sure I'll basically tell them when I get back. They have no idea. Yeah. When I was in the regiment, one of the things about the SAS was it's big on languages, and they actually had a full-time Arabic instructor. So at some stage, we all went through 2 or 3 month Arabic. So I spoke a little Arabic, and I used to enjoy it. So we got one of the guys from North Africa, and I'd speak Arabic to him. I'd mess about, and the guys would look at me, you speaking Arabic? Well, yes. And I made the same joke as I did with my friend here. I said, don't worry about it. I said, in 20 years' time, you're all going to be speaking Cantonese or Mandarin.
Probably. I don't doubt
Probably
it.
Not, but
I hope not.
No, America won't do that. I mean, people can promise this and say we're going to do this, but no, that's not going to happen. Yeah. And it's just interesting. Nobody knows what I did. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't need accolade.
No, I can certainly get that from you. It's just, it strikes me as funny to think, you being in that position and people kind of completely oblivious walking by, having no idea what you used to do for a living and how capable you are. But I do have a note about the Rastafarian lifestyle that I'd love for you to talk about.
we were down on Ascension Island there, waiting to go. And of course, we all had wills, but of course we had wills before we left. And what you had this spindly little Royal Air Force padre. And he's one of them that can't, but I just want to talk to this and that. And we used to laugh. He looked like the kind of spindly little guy an orgasm would kill him. He wouldn't last 2 damn minutes. And he says, well, you know who you are. Your chances of being killed. I said, yes, we knew that before we went on selection. I said, I knew that the day that I signed up to be a soldier. I've sacrificed my life to whatever my country wants. And I said, as long as you if there's a group of us, just bury us all together and this and that. Then one of the guys comes up and says, hey, I tell you what, because we're non-religious in Britain. We're no religion. I never knew anybody that went to church. I never knew anybody that had a degree. And of course, thanks to Henry VIII, it's separated from the Catholic Church. So we all had our own religion of Church of England, which was, I suppose, a Protestant thing. It was just Church of England, So we all put a line through religion, and I'm dead. What does it matter? And he said, well, if, you get killed, we want to know what type of service, this and that. And when the guy says, hey, what's that thing they do? They can bring you back to life. What, zombies? Yeah, zombie. And one of the guys said, you know what I really want? He said, if I'm dead, whether it's on my own or with you, my friends here, he said, I don't want bugles or last post or rifles. He said, I want Bob Marley and the Wailers going, Buffalo soldiers. I'm jamming. So what do? Religion? Rastafarian. And guess what? Militaries have a sense of humor. They made it a semi-official document. So quite a number of members of To SAS religion Rastafarian. The only thing is they wouldn't let us grow dreadlocks.
So it ultimately was just a joke.
Well, we thought it was a joke, and it was. I mean, the ID discs didn't change or something, but it just became an official document. On my discharge papers, it had C of E Rastafari.
Yeah. But it's certainly not something
and it's one of them deals. It's like a lot of stupid things that go on. You couldn't make that up.
Yeah.
You couldn't sit down and devise such a story like that.
Yeah. In terms of kind of what you see taking place, I mean, I know you don't have a cell phone, and it sounds like you're kind of anti-technology in terms of your day-to-day life.
I just don't need it more than anything.
In terms of what's going on kind of geopolitically, do you have a thought process as to, what we're doing in Iran and, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, tensions with China? Like, do you pay attention to any of that stuff?
Yes. I don't really watch the news because I don't believe it. I got involved in something where it was total fabrication. I watch it and I know something happened, but may not be the way it did because all the media is, left wing, and they'll all put their own slant on it. I don't know. I thought about it. I mean, maybe it's about time we gave Iran a good kick up the damn butt, because there may be a degree of what we did with the Falklands, and that is you're sending a signal, hey, don't mess with us. We had 4 years of a Democrat president. Anyway, and now we got an American in the White House. And maybe a degree of, hey, all you Middle Eastern countries, especially Iran, even Russia, whatever, this and that, don't mess with us. Leave us alone. We're not just this superpower with all this equipment, manpower, and this and that. We will use it. We can debate whether it was a good idea or not, perhaps from a soldier perspective, damn right. Especially hitting all possible nuclear sites and whatever, absolutely. Every now and again, a stupid bully needs to have a good kick in the butt and a punch on the nose and saying, back off.
Do you think that we've gone about it the right way? I
don't know too much about it. I think, yes. I mean, your opening statement, you went out in round one, to test each other as boxers. You go on the offensive, defensive, you do this and that, see what happens, see what they come back with, and all that type of deal. What little I know, I think, yeah, good. The round one come out, we're sort of both back in our corners now and thinking, what are we going to do? And as long as they got the end game, that's all I care about here in the United States. And everywhere. What is the end game secured? My friends even said that. It's okay going in and kicking ass and, sorting them all out. Then what? That's always the case, isn't it? What ensues? Then what? I can see that in Iraq. You're sort of handing the country over. Afghanistan. Then what? As Britain found in the Revolutionary War, there's no way we're going to win. We got an absolutely crazy, stupid, mad king, and you can never beat a country when they live there. It's not like the Second World War where there was a front line. You push your enemy back past that line. Americans, you live here. This is your home. And unless you put tens of thousands, 100,000 British soldiers cornered every inch. America found that in Vietnam. You can't beat people who live there. You can go and take Hamburger Hill, Heartbreak Ridge, or whatever it is. Unless you leave troops there permanently, the moment you leave, it goes back to being enemy. They live there. And it was why, and I think we're seeing that maybe with Afghanistan. They live there. Are you going to change, thousands of years? I mean, the British Army in the Northwest Frontier spent God knows how many years trying to, with the Khyber Pass, the Karakum Pass and all that, into Afghanistan. It was technically the soft belly to go through there, while Russia went into Chechnya and all that. It's the soft belly into Afghanistan. But you're not going to change anything. They got nowhere to go.
So I guess that's
nowhere to go.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of the question with even Iran, is that I don't disagree in that, there's an element of, kicking people's asses,
right.
Sometimes that I think is necessary to send a message. I think the tough part is where do you draw that line of how much is enough of an ass kicking,
right,
versus a full-on invasion where you're now living
that
there for years.
That I don't see at all, because I think the same thing could happen as the possibility with Japan, why the nuclear bomb came in, because the mass casualties, and again, these people, yes, there's a lot of pro-West there, a lot of that, but there's a lot of Islam. When you take Islam out, and all of a sudden, even though they don't like, when I'm learning Arabic, there's no such place as the Persian Gulf, it's the Arabian Gulf. So though they may not be pro-Iranian, they're Muslim. So are you going to start antagonizing some of the other countries that were staying neutral and this and that? I don't know. As I said, what's going to happen? What ensued? All we can hope for is that you go over there, you kick your ass, and hopefully they can do something from inside and topple some of these big people. You hopefully maybe do that. If not, they'll just reel back, go back to their corner in round two, and then refresh and come back out again. Maybe that was the problem originally with Desert Storm after Desert Shield. We only had to go back years later and finish the damn job off again. But, between George Bush and Margaret Thatcher was, just that the ideal was free Kuwait. We did, but so it's an interesting prospect, really. And I look at that and what else are we going to do? Where else are we going to go? When I was in Kosovo, great city there, Pristina. Right in the middle of Pristina is a big statue of Bill Clinton. And the shop behind was Hillary's. And I looked and I said, what the hell is a big statue of Bill Clinton? Then you go back into history, and then when I think it's Serbia was going to invade into Kosovo, Bill Clinton got onto them and said, hey, you put one soldier into Kosovo, and said, I'll flatten your city. Okay. Milosevic, okay, we'll back off. So, of course, from Kosovo's point of view, thank you. It just took the threat, the verbal threat. I suppose we've been threatening Iran for long enough. You know, some presidents have given them money, you know, and technically supported. I think the physical show, I'm in support of it, as long as there's an objective, a positive objective for the Iranian people. Excuse me, oh please, excuse me. What is our exit strategy? Then what? Don't know. I'll be honest.
To me, I think that's kind of the crux, is that I agree. I think if there's an objective that can be A, clearly defined, B, actually is communicated to the public so that you can support it or not, and then you do it until the objective is met, and then that's it. I think that's the biggest problem, is like, just like you said, I don't know what the objective is. I don't think most people do, and that's why it's hard to say, well, yeah, go ahead and punch him in the mouth, and then stand there and be like, well, I don't know if I still want to fight or not.
You know, like with Iraq, you know, we're going to, you got rid of all the guys, you know, we're training the Iraqis, their security forces, their police, you know, to take over and still help out with insurgents and this and that, but I think they sort of got out. I think they went to Afghanistan or maybe just went home. And there was a clear, defined to me, we're going to help this country take it over, go back to being, you know, a republic, a democratic republic. Afghanistan, I don't agree with the way we left. Quite the contrary. I think that was abysmal. I don't know. I tend to trust, what's his name there, Don Trump a little bit, President Trump, and I hope he has an exit strategy and a firm objective of what he's hoping to gain out of it, and what does he expect to happen next.
Yeah, I hope so too. Having lived in the United States for quite a while now,
42 years.
42 years, is there anything that concerns you about where our country is at and or headed?
No, I don't believe you're going to become socialist. I mean, they have become a little bit more vocal. The other thing we got is, you know, it's like we're laughing of the gun issue. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. Well, Britain doesn't have a gun problem. It's not as if our country wasn't developed on Winchester repeating arms, Colt 45, you know, Remingtons. I said, really, when you look at this country, you know, how it's really, we're talking early 19th century, which is nothing in world history. You're only 250 years old, 250, that's all. You're young. And I said, but your country developed with firearms. Both times Britain came over here. You know, yes, we burnt the White House and we did this and we did that and left, went to Canada, and it still needed the gun. And then you look and you know, talk to the liberals, what are you going to do? Come on, tell me, what do you expect to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Now you've got all this, you know, liberal governors and things, you know, defund police, cut their budgets. And then the next thing we're going to say is, well, we're going to want them all to go and take all the guns out of the houses. Well, wait a minute, don't we have a few amendments that we're going to have to dissolve before we can get anywhere near that? I think the whole U.S. Constitution has to be completely dissolved. And I said, and who's going to do it? A cop. He or she's going to go up to a house and say, we want your gun. I said, we don't have any. Because they went outside, and what they did is from the outside, they went in and they broke a window and said, we've been robbed. How many cops now are going to say, well, apparently in the last 3 days, there's been 15 to 16 million robberies.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's, from the liberal point of view, you know, there are people who I think seem to think that socialism would be nice. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. We'll just give you money. We'll just look after you. Oh, that sounds nice. But it's not. There's far, far more involved in that. I mean, that's nothing. That's just rhetoric. What is this country going to do? It'll keep going. You'll still have your checks and balances, I suppose you could say. You know, it's like my state, Virginia. You get a Republican, you get a Democrat governor. You get a Republican, you get a Democrat. Republic goes blue, it goes red. Then the blue goes too far, and then it goes red. And then the blue don't like what the reds do, and so they go. You know, and it's, to me, it's American. You know, you are the United States of America. It's not until you leave and you go outside and you look, go to Europe, go to Britain, and then come back and say, do you have it this bad? Oh no. People say to me, ever thought of going back? Hell no.
Is that to say what
The
are
beer and the rugby, that's all I miss.
Yeah. So I take it your thoughts on the current state of the UK are not positive.
Well, a couple of years ago we had Brexit. Get out of the European community, because what happened then was it just became like the United States. You get all these refugees. Once they're in one state, they're free to go to any state and anywhere in the United States, and that's what's happening. And what was going on, talking to friends I had back there, Britain had a very, very good social security program. So you got basically the dregs of Europe would go over there and expect it to be housed, expect you to give me money, same as in Australia, but Australians sort of put them all, hey, you like our money, you like what we do, so quit whining because we have a society you don't like. If you don't like women in bikinis out on the beach, don't go to the beach. And Britain has let it go too far. There are areas in Britain that are under Sharia law. Sharia law. No whites allowed in that area, not unless he or she is Muslim. What? And then, of course, the police, with all this, well, you got to be gentle. Oh, I wouldn't be a cop anywhere in the world today now, especially USA, Britain. I'm talking to some of my friends. They're very disappointed with it all. They don't like it, the way it's going. And, of course, we're only a small, if you take the main island of Great Britain, it's small. It's very, very small square mile. I believe they say it's the same size as Oregon.
Yeah.
But we have 7 times the population. Imagine the United States, 7 times its population. That's what Britain is. You can drive from London and you can go all the way up to the Midlands and you don't leave the built-up area. You just come from one town to the other and you never go out into the country. You can go to Wales and then go up in the hills and start to see country. All my generation, no. I think my father would have been, totally abhorred. He'd be aghast at what is going on today. Let too many in.
Do you think there's any hope for Britain to get back to the way it was?
No. Same as the United States. It'll never go back. Yeah. Never go back to, the nice post-war 50s, the great generation, and doing all that. It'll never go back there. But I don't think it's going to be any worse either. I think the vast majority, really Republican. They like the United States. They'd like to see manufacturing in the United States. I don't think anything's really going to badly change. The negative politicians, socialist politicians, may anger a lot of people, but I don't think they really have the backing to go and do anything. Yeah. They never do. The last president, it's all rhetoric. Oh, all you youngsters, all you young, vote for me, and I'll get rid of your, college sort of money you owe and all this and that. Oh, really? And then what happened? Nothing. But we got your vote. We're going to pay off all your college debts. Yeah, okay. How many billions and trillions is that going to cost? And then the banks are probably going to turn around and say, no way. Then we're going to lose interest.
Yeah.
Interest payments. A one-time payment, is not what, like with credit cards, it's not what they want. They don't want you to pay it all off in one go. They want you to pull this percentage rate out and they will get twice as much out of you. Yeah. So it's all rhetoric, it's all nice, and the young kids, when they're young, they're all liberals. Once they get married and they have a job and they're paying taxes and they got kids and they see where the money going, they become Republicans.
Yeah. That does seem to be largely the case. Do you carry a concealed weapon?
No.
No.
I have two at home. I mean, I'm in the weapons industry. I was a soldier. My late wife had a Lady Smith & Wesson 6-shot 357 revolver. I got that by the bed. And I got a H&K 40 cal USP, which I have in the house for home protection and stuff. But I don't, I'm at that stage where I'm not so paranoid, I've got to have my back to the wall. I got to keep watching the front door of what's happening, though there's a degree of reality in that. But I think you get to the stage where you can't live like that. I could get a concealed carry. Virginia's not too hard. And at one stage, you could do it online. And with my background, I've had it given to me before, just because of my background and competency with weapons. No, not really. I don't want to walk around and stuff. Virginia is really, technically, theoretically, you're allowed to wear a gun. And I see people in the supermarket walking along with a handgun on. Of course, you're not going to go into a bank, and some places are going to do it. But of course, as long as you open carry, that's fine.
Yeah, same here in Texas. Some people open carry.
Moment you put a coat over it, you're now in concealed carry.
Yeah.
And that's where the thing, and I used to see a lot of people, I know a lot of people, go down to North Carolina, and you're a little bit more out there in the sticks, and you see shopkeepers there with a gun on.
Yeah.
And they said, are you really going to do anything? Probably not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scare away the Yahoo thinks he's going to make $20 out of it.
Yeah. Do you still train at all, shooting-wise?
No.
Nothing? Yeah.
No. I don't shoot.
Yeah.
I take friends out and I'll teach them how to shoot, do this and that. No, I don't.
So I guess what's next for you? Just living the Rastafarian lifestyle?
Yeah, exactly. And listen to, reggae on, buff. I'm jamming, and all this and that. I like all black music, Motown. That was the greatest era of music. Rap music today, to me, is a worthless noise. I had black friends that said, I don't listen to that rubbish. It's just noise, repetitive, boring noise. And then you go back to talented Motown. What great musicians and singers and songs that came out of that era. I'm 72. I'm 73 next month. I'm seriously feeling me slow down. As I said, getting up, knees. I've abused the knees, lower back. I feel fine and everything else. I don't go to the doctors. I'm on, the odd pill, this and that. My doctor's always screaming at coming for a checkup. And I said, no. I said, I'm old house. I said, when I'm thirsty, I drink. When I'm hungry, I eat. When I'm tired, I sleep. When I don't feel good, I go to a doctor. They said, if I feel okay, why do I need to go to a doctor?
Yeah.
And I know, and of course, the big pain in the ass today is test. No, I'm not going to be a guinea pig on that. I love this country. I still believe it's the finest country in the world. I've traveled. I've always said, kids leaving high school, 17. It would be cost effective in the end. What we're going to do is you're going to spend a month's holiday on behalf of the US government. You're going to spend a week in a Central or a South American country, but you're not going to Rio de Janeiro. You're not going to Mexican City. You're going to Bolivia. You're going to do something like that. You go to El Salvador. Then you're going to spend a week in an African country. You're not going down to Cape Town or up to Cairo or something like that. You're going to go to Chad, Congo, or something, and then to Europe. You spend a week in Europe. But you're not going to Rome or Paris or London. Not that there's anything bad. You're going to the Czech Republic or Hungary. And I say, I tell you what, I don't give a damn the color of the skin of these people, their religion, their background, their heritage. When they've gone all around the world, they're going to get off that plane and go, thank God I live here. If people think it's bad here, go to Europe. It's full. It's full. In Africa, go back to fighting each other. Go back to tribal fighting. You know, it's not the cute little, you know, African villages that are clean and tidy. No, they're still killing each other because, you know, different tribes. And I said, get off the plane. Start supporting this country, because you do actually live in the finest country in the world. I wouldn't change this for anything. Yes, I said the beer and the rugby. You know, I would go back to Britain, but as a visitor. I got nothing back there. I got no kids, got no siblings. I have nothing like that. I go back. I got some cousins somewhere still in South Wales there. I go back, like the last time with my mother's funeral. We're in a hotel, so we don't have anywhere to stay, no family, no relatives. Another reason I don't carry a cell phone. I don't have any family. And I'm not one of those people calling me all the time. I have a phone in the house that when I had the business, I have a very audible answering machine, and it says who's calling. If I don't know who it is, I don't bother answering. Because when I had the business, that's what I did. I wanted to know who's calling. And I don't care, you know, answering. I missed a call. Oh my God, I missed a call. Yeah. If you don't like America, go somewhere else. Yeah. Even Ronnie Reagan said that. If you don't like this country, get on a plane. There's a plane going anywhere on the hour every hour. If you don't like it, he said, I tell you what, get a return ticket.
Yeah. Man, what a fascinating journey, and just an incredible story. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing it. Is there anything that you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, not really. I'm not, as I said, I'm not an ego guy, but I tell you what, if I go back in time to the start, I'd probably do the same thing again.
Yeah.
I'd do the same life again. However, with a little bit of foreknowledge, I'd probably circumvent some of the stupid things. You know, when you get together with your guys, you don't, what we call swing the light. You know, we used to joke about that. You know, third battle of Ypres there, sit on the sandbag, put your helmet on, swing the light. We're going to start talking war stories. You don't do that. You talk about the stupid, most idiotic thing that happened that maybe at the time wasn't funny, but as time goes on, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And you're all having a drink together and you're all laughing about what happened, and maybe one person there that made the mistake, he's laughing too. Yeah, okay, it was my turn, knowing full well it was my turn to be an idiot. It'll be one of your turn. Yeah. And I think that's the way I look at it all. Yeah, I've made mistakes. Of course we have. It's made who I am. I wouldn't change a thing. I go back and I do exactly the same thing. I'm very happy, very proud to live in the United States. I'm glad the border is being blocked up a little bit. You know, let's look after Americans. You know, that was fine for me to say that. I was illegal for a year technically. But was it charity begins at home or something like that? Nothing wrong with this country whatsoever, and I don't think it'll ever go socialist. It can't.
Yeah.
It can't. Areas may go that way, certain states may do that, and whatever. There's enough people in California to make sure that it doesn't get too stupid. All the California politicians, the Pelosi's and all that, you know, you can have areas there with all the transients, whatever there, but there's still a good heartbeat in California that's going to say, hell no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Southern Texas here, hell no.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Amen on that. I will say, you know, to look back at your life at 72 and say I would do it all the same way, I think is the mark of a life well lived. So congratulations on that. I think.
Well, as a man, I would drink more, have more sex, and smoke more cigars. But other than that, everything is hunky-dory, as you say.
I love it. Again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share.
My pleasure indeed.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed myself, and you've been kind and professional with me. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure for sure. To the listener/viewer, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.